I think we're live. Hello, friends. Hello. We are live. It's nice to see
Oh, good.
everyone. Here comes my chat catching up. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have you here. Welcome back to Fae Fire. Today we are doing the episode 10 predictions, spoilers. There will be some spoilers, and just talking about what we can expect from the finale of season 1 of House of the Dragon. So, there's a lot to talk about. Episode 9 was fully just about the greens. So episode 10 we can kind of presume is going to be fully about Team Black. So yeah. And I'm here with my wonderful friend Kaci of House Lorebridge. So how are you doing
Hi.
today?
I'm good. Just had a busy morning, but glad to be here and
Same.
able to get into my dragon mindset for the weekend.
Yeah. Same. I had to go do morning, I went to the pumpkin patch with the children, and so, normal morning things, and now I'm like, "Okay, I gotta do dragon stuff for the next several days," so it's never ending. I'm, like, ready to touch some grass, but but let's see. Hello to everyone in the chat. We've got Mrs. Duncan the Tall. We have got Wicked Disperse. I don't think I know you. So welcome to the chat. Welcome to the channel. Very happy to see you. And of course, Casey's here and everyone else that's here. Very happy to see you. Samael Morningstar. And just so you know, I think we are going to have a very special guest here in a little while. So make sure and stick around for the chat because you never know who will come through shining their light on our
Fingers
on our
crossed.
predictions. So we're really happy to be here. Episode 9 was crazy, was intense. It was more than I was, expecting. And so yeah, I mean, it's kind of the consistent thing of like Game of Thrones where episode 9 is like really crazy. Something really crazy happens and episode
True.
10 is kind of like reeling, like catching up and being like, okay, what the hell are we going to do kind of thing. So, I definitely think that episode 9 set us up for that. And it went pretty close to the book.
Yeah, I
Except
think
for
it hit the main points.
Mhm. Yeah, just the ending was a little, a
I
little
was a
different,
little
a lot different with Melee's
I
and
was a little
Rhaenys.
surprised by this episode 9 though, because all season I have been swearing up and down that episode 9 would be our Viserys death episode. And then
Mhm.
as the season kind of went on, I kind of had to shift to like, God, maybe end of 8, but then what are we gonna do with 9? Because 9 has historically been things like the Red Wedding,
Mhm.
where like major game altering deaths are what happens.
Yeah,
But I mean, I suppose Aegon usurping the throne
that's our
from Rhaenyra is still pretty game changing, so might
yeah.
not have been a death in the way we thought it would be, but we did also have a few deaths, so not
You
mad
know,
about
too.
it.
Poor Lord Beesbury, getting his
Oh god, right?
skull just smashed onto their little council, like,
Mhm.
Dragonstones that they have, which
And Lord Caswell.
yeah. Mhm. So, yeah, Lord Caswell, we need to, give it up for Lord Caswell, who he died trying to stay true to Rhaenyra. So, I mean, I really
Mhm.
think he deserves a little bit of love, a little bit of attention for that. Um, he went out like a G, and he was always in service to Rhaenyra. The only times we saw him, I mean, he really hesitated on bending the knee, but he also knew he
Mhm.
really didn't have a choice. And so I don't
Yeah.
disrespect him for that moment in the throne room where he kind of had to make that choice, but he
Oh
still
no, at
turned
that point
around
you have
and
to
was
stay
like, "I'm
alive.
not."
You have to try and stay alive.
Mhm. Gotta do what you gotta do, but that doesn't mean that he still didn't try to, like, get out and go and,
Mhm.
handle it, so
Yeah, he
there
was
was
trying to pull a Rhaenys and just didn't quite succeed. Poor man.
you gotta have a dragon. Not a horse. You need a
Right.
dragon. But, yeah, so let's see. So episode 9 was, one of your favorites, if not your favorite. Really? Interesting. Well, there was a lot of, a lot of energy, a lot of like emotion going on. And actually, I really
Mhm.
enjoyed the scenes with Aegon, um, with just his shenanigans. And then they have to chase him around, and he's like, I don't want it, and it's just that the old I don't want it king. eh, Which,
He
you
changed
know,
his tune real quick, though.
but it's also kind of a funny contrast to like John, where
Mhm.
he didn't want it, but like he probably would have been a decent king. Whereas Aegon doesn't want it, and we know he's not going to be a good king. He doesn't want it because he just wants to go drink. Let's be honest.
Well,
So,
like Aemond had been telling Kristen Cole that, like, was the one who had been studying and doing all of these things that you would need to do to prepare to rule, whereas Aegon, as far as we'd seen, he likes to drink, he likes to flirt, and he likes to do other nefarious things with the ladies. And that's about it. So
yeah,
really, whoever was ruling would have been his hand, in this case, Otto, when he
you
was
know,
crowned. So
I
Otto
was.
would have ended up just running the show.
That's what they want. They're fine with him being a puppet king because it makes their life easier. He's, one less obstacle to put up with in trying to do whatever they want to do. So it is interesting. Let's see. Do you
Did it
guys feel that?
develop empathy or sympathy toward Alicent and the Greens? I do have to feel a
Good.
little bad for them because they're not even on the same side with each other.
Yeah, they're having their own sort of
Like, there's
internal
Alicent
division.
who wants what she wants, Otto wants what he wants, Aegon wants what he wants, Aemond wants something different.
Well, also considering that Allison had no idea, these
Mhm,
the lords and her father, this is like her real wake-up call of like, oh my God, my dad's actually this kind of crappy person that I've sort of heard that he is. And like now I can
mhm,
start to see why he was dismissed before. And I can see he pulls the strings behind the scene. And it's a little scary for her. I would be terrified, her because now she can really see how much her father has used her for her whole life. And she says that to
mhm,
him later, especially like after they were, struggling to find Aegon, and they send out their two separate Kingsguard like factions to go find him. And once she gets Aegon and she wins, she gets him, and she's like, look, we're not doing this. We're going to do this my way. I'm the queen. You made me the queen. So now you have to listen to the queen, kind of thing. So
mhm,
I do feel a little bit sympathetic for Alicent, because if if you're a person who's being used to someone else's ends, and then they're doing stuff behind your back, just the sort of shock of finding out that they had been planning all that with Aegon. And then she's like, what? You guys already had plans for this? Like, it is pretty shady. So I do feel for her.
only a
And
little
yes,
bit, though.
yeah, it is interesting to have the internal conflict on either side. And so we will see if that happens in episode 10.
Yeah, it's just human to have that conflict.
Yeah, for real. And there's got to kind of it keeps things interesting. So,
Mhm.
let's see. Well, all right. So, yes, Eric and Eric. So, the Cargyle twins and the way they
Yes.
do Egon. And yes, and I don't know which one it is. I'm going with, you know what? We're just calling him Sir Eric and then figure it out. The one that went to Rhaenyra is very interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And he took
So
Viserys' crown, which is really
I
which
looked it up just because I was irritated with myself the last episode, and it looks like um Eric with an A is the one who is on Aegon's side, and
oh,
Eric with
okay.
an E is the one who is kind of like sketched out and helped Princess Rhaenys escape.
Okay. All right. So we'll just Eric
There
with
you go,
an
Mrs.
A,
Duncan.
A for
Eric for
Aegon.
Alicent with an A.
Eric for Alicent, A for an A. Yeah, exactly. Eric for Aegon or Alicent. All the A's.
There we go.
All right, now we know.
Good,
So
now we can keep it straight because it's just Eric.
yeah. So how do you think things are going to go? So basically episode 9 was left with Rhaenys taking off from the dragon pit, of
Mhm.
course, after threatening them all. Now, what do you have any feelings on that? I mean, obviously, if she burned them all, we wouldn't have a show.
Right.
But it would have been nice, kind of. It would have saved a lot of trouble. So, do
True.
you have any thoughts
Well,
on that?
on her not burning them or just the whole thing?
Both.
Okay. Um, so I personally liked the scene. I know some people on Twitter and everything were saying that they felt like it was kind of cheesy, basically,
Mhm,
was the consensus on one part of Twitter at least. But I really liked it just because we haven't seen a lot of dragon action so far in the show. We've seen dragons flying and everything like that, and I mean we've seen dragons in action a little bit with Sea Smoke and Caraxes,
mhm.
but we haven't really seen them in this way as much as I think as I would have liked at this point. So also I think is a very good way to make a point that the High Towers and um, the Targaryen children from Alicent and Viserys have pissed off Princess Rhaenys, and she's pissed. But here's my thoughts on her not burning them, okay? So I think that she didn't burn them because even though Rhaenyra was named heir, and even though Rhaenyra has been fully on board with getting to be the heir and the queen and her children following her, Rhaenys doesn't know if once this coronation has happened, what Rhaenyra is going to do with this.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily her place to start a war when it could, for all we know, for all she knows, it could have just been House Velaryon having to then fight the whole of House Targaryen because she burned half of them.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
because
mean,
she hasn't even told because Rhaenyra doesn't even know what happened yet.
mhm.
So it seemed like kind of a prudent move to at least have that warning there.
Yeah,
But was it her job to take a risk of starting a war without at least informing Rhaenyra what had happened and letting her, as the heir, decide what was gonna take place afterwards?
yeah,
Because we
essentially
do see in the
starting the
trailer where
war.
she's warning Rhaenyra what happened.
Essentially starting the war, like, in her name. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
it's like you
point.
feel like you need some permission for that, and Princess Rhaenys, as badass as she is very practical, she's pretty level-minded, I feel like,
Mhm.
and so I don't feel like even though the Greens would have deserved it, that she would have lit them up out of pure emotion because they locked her up in her bedroom.
Yeah,
Because up until because she hadn't been hurt, she hadn't.
they
Oh,
could
my
have done
computer
more,
screen.
that's very true. They could have
Sorry, my
just
computer screen
killed
went black for
her.
just a second there, and I wasn't sure what was happening.
Oh. They
But
could
yeah,
have
she
done a
hadn't
lot
been hurt.
for
She
him.
hadn't been threatened. Allison went in to have a talk with her. Rhaenys flipped it around, but really, all that happened to her was she got locked in her bedroom.
Yeah,
So
I guess it would have been a, you know, uneven payback. Although
yeah.
it was really fascinating to watch her watch the whole thing because you have to
Hmm.
just imagine. I mean, she's been through this. That's the other thing. She's
Yeah.
been through having her crown or having, it's a similar situation to like what she's been through because it was Viserys that got the crown. She's the
Hmm.
one, she's in the Rhaenyra role, and it's like, so she can kind of. It's interesting because she'll take that information to Rhaenyra and then see how Rhaenyra reacts to it, like in comparison to
Hmm.
her. Is she going to
Well,
because Rhaenys has handled her losses with a lot of class.
yeah.
She, you know, she still has a really great life and she doesn't have the responsibilities of, the throne. So I think
Oh,
that's how she's made her peace with it and has
yeah.
never had an issue. Whereas, she has that conflict with, her husband, who he's still
Mhm.
trying to like take all that stuff on. He's like, no, we need to put our heirs onto the throne, as sort of, and using Rhaenys as like the reason for that as like a payback, but she's done with all that.
Well, and also, could it look, if Rhaenys had lit up the greens, could it look like the queen who never was trying to take the throne for herself?
Mhm. Good point.
But she's not. Like, she told Corlys, like, she doesn't care about the throne. Like, she put that out of her mind forever ago. She doesn't
Yeah.
have those ambitions. She just wants to enjoy her life with her kids and her grandbabies. And she doesn't care to do it. She doesn't want it. It's not been offered to her. And she no longer even wants it if it was on offer. But could it look like
Mhm.
that if she had lit up a newly crowned king in the dragon pit?
Now here's a question I've been kind of contemplating over, because
Hmm.
all right, here's a spoiler. You guys, if you hadn't heard already, we are going to be talking spoilers, obviously Fire and Blood spoilers, and maybe some other spoilers. So um, just be mentally prepared. So later in the story, in Fire and Blood, you know, Meleys and Rhaenys, they go up against there's the where's it at? Rook's Rest, where they have the big battle.
I think
And
so.
um and it ends up that Rhaenys and Aegon's there and Aemond is there. So Rhaenys is essentially fighting against Vhagar and Sunfire. And interestingly,
Mhm.
we haven't seen Sunfire like fly, you know, Aegon on Sunfire. So that's kind of interesting. But my question is I'm wondering if, because of sort of the like Rainey's kind of stealing the show and, you know, definitely like stealing his thunder. Do you think Aegon is
Yeah,
going to be motivated by like payback to pay her back when they go and they fight later? Do you think he's going to be like, you know, she stole my thunder. That was my coronation. And she showed up and like, you know, she killed a bunch of people. And so do you think he's going to have like an extra vengeance toward Rhaenys going forward because of that? Because he is kind of a vain individual, you know? And that was like, I feel like Aegon, he went through such a transition of emotions through episode 9 because he's
right,
so down in the dumps, feeling crappy. They're like, okay, we're gonna make you king. He's like, you're insane. Like everybody can see right through, you know, what you're doing.
right,
This is it's my sister's crown. Are you kidding me? And I think in the book he says something like, what kind of brother steals his sister's, you know, birthright or something like that. Um,
yeah,
so he is really vain. And then we see kind of as the coronation goes on, and once the people start cheering him, he's like, oh, okay, I like this. You know, he really starts soaking it in and loving that attention. And then right in the middle of that is when Rhaenys comes and busts through. And so she really kind of
right.
ruined that moment for him. And so I'm wondering if like he's, you know, if he's going to have an extra like vengeance toward her or towards the Valarians for that.
I don't think it'll be for that. I think it'll just be because he'll see her as a traitor, and that's kind of where it'll stop. I don't think he'll really care. He definitely won't care about any of the small folk that were in the dragon pit who, you know, got injured or killed.
Yeah.
Um, he's I don't know how much he would even care because she ruined his coronation, because he didn't even want the coronation until it was 90% done.
True.
So I think any of his, you know, irritation or anger over it will just be because he'll be like Joffrey, you know, stomping his feet. I am the king,
Yeah.
and I think that'll kind of be the extent of it.
Yeah.
I
Very
don't think he
interesting.
cares enough about much of anything to care about why he's angry at her. Just he's angry at her, and
Mhm.
that'll be good enough for him.
Okay, here's another question. All right, because this
Hmm.
came up in episode 9. Otto is a creep, and he said, you know, he's trying to butter up Alicent, and he says something along the lines of, you look just like your mother. Okay. So,
Hmm.
or in this light or whatever. Okay. Hold
Yeah,
on.
after
Bear with
she
me.
got done like scolding him, and he was that what you mean when She was like, "Nope, I
Yeah.
have him. This is what's going on." He's like, "You remind me of your mother."
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So my question is, now there's a mystery. Okay, we have a freaking mystery on our hands, all right? Who is
Okay.
Allison's mother? We don't know. All right. And I have spent a considerable amount of time looking for an answer to this and come up with some really crazy ideas that Cece
Okay.
just laughs at me about. Um, but
Okay, so what are some of
so
your ideas? Because I would think that she would have to be a lady, obviously, from a noble house, and
Mhm,
given that even though Otto's a second Hightower son, he's still a Hightower, and the Hightowers are pretty important in Westeros, I feel like,
mhm.
especially with, um, him being at least present at court and then moving on to be Hand of the King after Viserys's father died.
Mhm.
So I feel like she would have to be from a fairly important house.
Well, I'm guessing okay, so here's kind of my thoughts of what I've narrowed it down to is either Sarah Targaryen or or
Sarah
probably a red
Targaryen.
wine. Yeah, Sarah Targaryen, okay? All right, I have my thoughts. Anyways.
Otto's too prudish
um
for Sarah.
for Sarah because you know what? I just know that Otto is greasy like that. So but also possibly a red wine is probably the more likely because there is a line
I feel
saying
like
that
a red wine
Otto
could make sense.
what's that?
A red wine could make sense,
Yeah, I
I
think
feel
I
like.
mean it does kind of make the most sense. I am kind of narrowing it down. There's this like consistent pattern with the high towers if you look at their family tree where the women are you can tell that they're a very sexist family tree because the women are so often left unnamed. They're just some wife,
Really?
some daughter, six
Hmm.
high tower daughters. There's no like acknowledgement to them. So there's been like a
They
Tarly
don't even
wife.
have first names on their family tree?
Yeah. Lord
Huh,
Hightower, like Otto's brother doesn't even have a name. He's Lord Hightower. That's all.
interesting.
So there's, some kind of holes in that, and I feel like it's probably intentional on George R. R. Martin's part. But it is really interesting to consider that if Allison's mother is a red wine, and we know the red wines have a really large fleet as well. So now we're looking at like if Allison can shore up like the red wine fleet, at least she has something to combat the Valarians because I mean, I think we
Right.
all know the Galarians are going to Team Black. I mean, that's not
Well, and the
difficult to figure
Greens
out.
do have the Greens. What ships would they have if the Velaryon ships are on Rhaenyra's side, presumably? At least in
Well,
the
and that's
book,
another good
the
question because
Velaryons
the
are.
red wines are like merchant ships,
Mhm.
they have wine and, like food and stuff like that, whereas the Valarians are warships. So
True. Are
she's
there
gonna
any other
have to
big, ship seafaring families
the
in
Ironborn.
Westeros? The
Um,
Ironborn? Is House
and the
Manderley
Ironborn have no love for the Targaryens, they really
true?
don't. So,
What about the Manderleys?
I guess the Manderleys are probably gonna do whatever the Starks do.
But they have ships and everything, right?
Yeah, but I think a lot of theirs are merchant ships as well.
And then does the Lannisters have ships as well, don't they? Because they have Lannisport.
Yeah, good point. Cece.
She really does not like your opinion on that
She does
one.
not like this theory, okay? She doesn't
I
like
just
it at
don't see
all.
I don't see Otto liking Sarah in particular. It's just how she's described. I'm like,
You guys have Otto all wrong, okay? Otto is as greasy as they come, all right? This man is exactly like Daemon Targaryen, and that's why he cannot stand him, because he's they're the exact same person. You can see if you watch them like the two characters, like they are so parallel to one another, and I think it drives Otto insane how much he's like Damon, because Damon can pick him apart. He knows exactly what he's going to do. He calls him out on all of his BS. He sees it right through Otto, and it drives Otto crazy because Otto thinks he's really smooth, but he's not. He's not as smooth as he thinks he is. So, but that's why I love
Okay,
Damon,
we can
because
agree to
Damon's a
disagree on
classic.
Sarah.
What's that?
We can agree to disagree on Sarah, because wasn't she, like, super spunky, like, Jaehaerys could barely keep a hold of her?
Yeah, but she was sent to Old Town to because of that, because she got in trouble. And so he sent her to the Septas to become, actually they were going to make her be a silent sister. And
Mhm.
she went through that for like a year, the training, and then she escaped. And somehow she got on a ship and made it to Essos, but there was like several years in between where she sort of, it's foggy, like her location. So I'm just saying Otto was not Hand of the King until later. But the only thing is that they say that Otto brought his wife and children to court. However, she's an unnamed wife. We don't know. Maybe it was
Mhm.
a stepmother. But the thing that really broke the straw that broke the camel's back on that theory was that um Allison, when she's talking to Viserys, she talks about her mother's death and how like difficult that was for her. So then I was like, oh
Right.
crap. Okay. All right. It's not her, but it is a good one. It's a good theory.
It also would have been a huge power play for Otto to have married one of Jaehaerys's daughters, and he would not have been able to keep that hush hush.
Yeah, I think he was not in that mind frame quite yet. Um, Not for a few more years, basically. I mean, it just kind of
Mm.
depends on like if he was actually involved with well, like Viserys kind of implied that Otto may have been involved with Balon's death, his father's death.
Mhm.
So it's possible. That's what I'm saying. Otto is greasy.
I think
Um,
he's always been ambitious as a second son. Like, once you get out of childhood and you realize that your older brother's probably not gonna die of the sweating sickness or something, like, you know that you're kind of screwed unless you start doing wheeling and dealing on your
well,
own.
I think it's probably like a family effort. They probably came up with this together, and we
Mm,
kind of see Hobart in the show sort of like rubbing elbows and like, yeah, we need to make sure Aegon gets on the throne kind of thing. But
right.
I bet it's like a whole conspiracy amongst their family, just like they conspired to put Aegon on the throne right under Allison's nose. It's another example of how little they think of their women in their family, and they're just pawns. They're like, put her here, make her do this, tell her to say this. If she doesn't say it, if she's picking at her fingers too much and making herself look bad, then, yeah, who knows what Otto did if he beat her ass or whatever he would do. But
Right.
Allison was very much in line. So, and
True.
yes, um, Otto, so he orders the assassination of Rhaenyra and the kids just right there. Just
Right off the bat, doesn't even take 2 seconds to think about it, I don't think, like.
that was already part of the plan. It was already there. They've got their checklist of, okay, when the king
Mhm.
dies, do this, do this, do this. And that was on the list,
I
which
think
is
it's
just,
kind of interesting because you brought up how much, he hates Daemon. I think it's really interesting that even then, like, he said there's Prince Daemon to consider, but he didn't automatically say to kill Daemon. Like, I would think that you kill Daemon first, and then if you're going to try and kill Rhaenyra and her kids, then you kill Rhaenyra and the kids, because Daemon's a little bit more of a threat to everyone's physical safety.
yeah, exactly. And we'll have to see, like, going into episode 10, what's his reaction going to be towards all of this, because again, Damon and Otto think alike. So Damon's
Mhm.
already going to know that Otto's like planning this, right? I mean, I'm sure that we see in the trailer Rhaenys goes, and that's the first thing they show in the trailer is Rhaenys goes. She goes to Dragonstone, and she's like, they're coming for you, Rhaenyra, and they're coming for your kids,
Yeah.
and so and Damon, he's already going to know this, so he's just, but yeah. So we'll see how he sort of reacts to it. I did actually catch a shot of, let me see if I can pull it up without too much issue. I'm not even going to bother. We'll just talk about it. So Otto actually shows up. They show a quick clip of it in the trailer. Otto shows up on Dragonstone, and he's on the walkway, the parapet, just like they in episode 2, I want to say.
Yeah, with the dragon egg thing.
Mhm. So it's almost the exact same, scene right there, and it's Damon and Otto face to face. And Damon's got his sword pulled out. So like again, it's like, let's just take care of this problem really quick. And just get it done. We don't have to go to war about this,
Right?
but then we won't have a show to enjoy. And I think we all enjoy the show.
That is
And,
true.
you know, even though
If
we
people had
all know
made
it's
smarter decisions, the show would not have as much in it.
yeah. We love the suffering, okay? This is who we are. Because we know we're gonna suffer with this show. We know. We see already in this trailer that some suffering's coming. It's coming our way.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's really interesting. Hey, Peter. So let's say hello to everyone in the chat. I know we've got some new people here. We've got Asif, we've got Peter, Steel Rain showed up, Angel, and yeah, and of course David Lightbringer, Mrs. Duncan the Tall still here. So hopefully you guys are all enjoying the stream. There will be some spoilers here. So just so you're prepared mentally and emotionally. So they're book spoilers and potentially show spoilers just because they all kind of go hand in hand. So just, whatever. Um
Yeah. Okay, but
so
Peter, we all love Helena. Like, there's no
with
one who
that,
doesn't love Helena.
yeah, Helena is literally my favorite. I I mean, I don't know if she's my favorite character, but she might be. I put out a video this morning if you guys got a chance to watch it about um Hell Almond, Helena and Amond, and their, relationship. So definitely check that out. I really love Helena. I think she's so fascinating. I love what they're doing with her character. And as far as her, oh, sorry, I don't know how I did that. Well, yeah. Oh, did you do that, Casey? um, yeah, her what they did with her with the beast beneath the board. So okay, we can talk about that really quick. The beast beneath the
Okay.
board, do we think that that was referring to Meleys in the dragon pit, or do we still think that's referring to something else?
I mean, if it's referring to a future event, it is a very obvious future event if you've read the book.
Mhm.
Um, it could honestly just have been Meleys though, because Helena's prophecies do seem to come true within an episode. Like, what was it? Like, she said he'll have to close an eye for Aemond, and then
Mhm.
was it the next episode or the episode or 2 episodes later where he got Vhagar and lost his eye?
I think it was the very next episode.
And then when she did her whole, spool of black, spool of green thing with the little spider,
Mhm.
and then that was that was during Lena's funeral, and then we had the next episode was
That was
Viserys's death, and then
the
the
Last
following
Supper.
episode after that
She does the
was
beast beneath the boards in the Last
yeah,
Supper episode, and then she says it again in episode 9.
and
But
she
I'm kind of
looks
wondering if it might have, like, multiple meanings.
that's what I was just thinking too, because when she said beware the beast beneath the boards
Mhm.
during dinner before Viserys dies. Wasn't that where she said it the first time?
Um, yeah, she says it at the dinner. That's
Okay.
the first time she says it.
And she was just kind of calm about it. And then when she says it to Alyssa again in this episode, she was like very agitated, very kind of stressed about it, which
Mhm.
I thought was kind of different because we haven't seen her stressed about any of her prophecies. They've all been so calm.
Yeah, they just kind of it's almost like she's she's like a Pythian priestess. She's
Yeah.
she's oracling. She's sitting there and inhaling fumes and, just whatever comes out of her mouth is like open for interpretation. So, um yeah,
I mean,
she
I feel like it could be both Maylis and the other future thing.
mhm. I think so too. I think there might be multiple meanings. I saw somebody else theorize that it could also refer to the Battle of the Gullet and to Jace specifically. Somebody said that she was saying the beast beneath the board to Jace because when he fights in the Gullet, um this was actually pretty good. I liked it because they tied it back to the scorpion she had in her box of bugs. And she's always talking
Okay.
about the bugs. And when she says the beast beneath the board, she's holding one of her little bugs. Even though she's at the dinner table, she's still like holding her little bug, like oracling. And but back when they showed her collection, she had a scorpion in there. And we know from Game of Thrones, the weapon that kills dragons is called a scorpion. So,
Yeah.
in the Battle of the Gullet, certain Jace's dragon is killed. Okay, Jace is killed. Okay, spoiler. Woo. We all know this. And so, but he's killed by a scorpion. So somebody said that that was actually another example. So I think there may be like multiple. I think they might use it as a storytelling tool and or a way to like sort of create multiple things kind of going with it and sort of things for us to dissect and nerd out over
Well, and
because
remember throughout the books,
fan
we
service.
keep having characters say in various ways that prophecy is kind of a fickle thing.
Mhm.
Like you can't quite trust it. And like Mrs. Duncan said, it wouldn't be the first time a Targaryen gets the timing wrong. We've seen
Yep.
plenty of people who have visions or prophecies or dreams or what have you throughout all the books who their interpretation's wrong or the timing is wrong, like something doesn't line up.
Yeah. It's interesting. Especially because she said it more than once, and we know also, that when things are said twice like George R. R. Martin, if he says something twice or more, then it's something to pay attention to, so I
Mhm.
think that's one of those little things. It may just be fan service for us, but I do think it is something important. I think
Right.
Helena is entirely important, and that's the thing about her is she's going to be sort of undermined and like they're like, like Aegon, she's an idiot, but actually she's probably the most important character, with the most knowledge,
Mhm.
the most foresight and you know, the one we should be listening to. So,
Yep. Yep. Helena's
yep.
important.
All right, let me click to my next picture. Who do we got here?
Okay.
So, okay. So, back to the trailer. So we know like the kids all right, so we're going to start talking spoilers and things. All right. The kids they want to go serve their mother, after Aegon's taken the crown, Rhaenys comes,
Mhm.
tells them what's up. The kids want to help. And we know that Jace goes to Winterfell. And we know that Luke goes to Storm's End.
Mhm.
So, and we see this, quick clip in the trailer where they're like, let us serve you kind of thing. And I just think that's so beautiful. Um,
They're
she
so
has such good
precious.
boys. They're such good boys, they are just so sweet. They're so strong and handsome. And I just
Mhm.
love them. That's all.
They're just good kiddos.
They are. So, we all know. Okay, so Winterfell. So Jace wants to go to Winterfell, and I believe he goes to the Vale also to speak to, because Rhaenyra's mother was half
Mhm.
Baron, and so
Right.
I hope we get to see that scene actually, because it would be cool if they did like a little nod to Visenya going to the Vale on her dragon.
That would be cool.
I would really like
Kinda
that a
see
lot.
where a dragon can land up there.
Mhm. The Vale is so cool. I really loved, in Game of Thrones, the scenes they had up there,
Mhm.
amazing. They're some of my favorite from the whole show. So, let's see. Oh, well, what do you know? It looks like somebody might be here to come into our chat. Hold on. Let me take this down. We'll see what might be coming up here. Hold on. My computer's probably going to do things. Be
Well,
angry
hello
for a
there.
moment.
There we go.
Holy moly. Who do we got here?
It's the David Lightbringer.
What do you know? Thank you so much for
Awesome.
being here.
Hey there, Casey. And do you go by Fayfire, or is there a first name I should know?
You can call me Aaron or Fayfire or whatever's clever. This is,
All
you
right.
guys
Well,
are witnessing David and I officially like talking face to face for the very first time. So
oh well,
we've
we
chatted
should.
a bit behind the scenes, but
Yeah, this is actually a heartwarming story of overcoming social media toxicity. It's worth sharing, actually. As you know, as you watchers of Aaron's channel know, of course, Fayfire has got some opinions, and I've got opinions, and pretty much everyone hanging on Twitter has opinions. And the thing about social
Mhm.
media is when you don't see people face to face, of course, well known dynamic encourages the worst in people, kind of like when people are in traffic, brings out the nasty a lot of times. And
Yep.
we basically had some, before either of us, I think, really knew much of who each other were. We had some random negative interaction where we were both in an opinionated, mouthy kind of mood, and we fired off at each other. And like, I insta blocked you and just moved on with my life. Then, like a year and a half later, I saw one of your videos after like week 4, I think it was, House of the Dragon. And I was like, oh yeah, Fayfire, that's right. She did all those awesome videos on Raised by Wolves, which I binged after season 2 of Raised by Wolves, and was like just so thankful for having the analysis that I needed about all the theories and the secrets, which of course is, what people like us chew on. And so I shared your video. I was like, oh, this Faye, she made this great video about the white stag and all this Arthurian stuff. Check it out. And I tried to tag you, and then found this old interaction of ours where we had misfired or whatever. And I just felt really sheepish. And we started chatting. We both laughed about it. And so here we are live streaming. And it just goes to show everyone, get off Twitter. And, just remember to have empathy and understanding, and good things can happen.
exactly.
Twitter's
You
a
never
vicious
know
place.
what someone's going through in their daily life. And when you're on Twitter, people are like, they don't care. They don't care about it's very disconnected from real life on Twitter, I feel. So it was actually really funny, but I'm glad that we overcame our adversities.
Exactly, because I am a huge, like I say, a huge fan of a lot of the stuff you've done. Not only the Raised by Wolves, but lots of the stuff you've done this season here. So
Thank you.
the YouTube problems, I've definitely had them. Everybody's had them. So I'm encouraged to see some of your videos doing better, and hopefully you'll get past whatever. I felt like I was shadow banned for a long time. I was not growing at all, and then finally kind of broke through a little bit. But the main thing is just to keep at it and doing the content you believe in, and that kind of everything else will follow after, right?
Yeah, that's it's almost one of those things where I have to just post things and then just never look at it, after that. Just be like, hope you guys enjoy.
Well, it's the
So
apple of discord. You roll it in and then you just walk away and let it do its magic.
Yep, go full heiress on it. And yes, I'm canceling Twitter too. No, actually, I like literally just went back on there after David and after he told me that, I was like, all right, I guess I'll go back on Twitter and maybe like, post a couple of videos. But you never know.
It's like reached self-parody stage, I would say.
Totally. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you can just look at it and just laugh and not take it seriously, that's the trick. Do not take any of it seriously.
Yeah, but the good news is that, of course, in real life, people give each other a little more leeway. They try to understand each other when they make an argument, and a lot of times, social media environments, it seems like people are just rushing to find a hole they can punch in someone's argument. And it's like, you can do that with any argument. You can try to grab onto the part that you think makes sense, or you can scan for the part that has a problem and then smash it. And it's all based on how whether you're trying to, like I said, have a conversation or just like sort of win a debate or whatever. But you guys have covered a lot of interesting stuff already. You were just talking about Helena. So can we just keep rolling with that? Because I love Helena. Obviously, she's a dreamer, and
keep going with Helena.
You mentioned you watched a video that maybe Aemond and Helena, maybe Aemond is the father of Helena's children. Tell me about that. I want to hear more about this.
Okay, so well, first of all, I totally like used this kind of cheap clip that was in I think actually I saw someone on Twitter saying it, that in that clip where Alicent first comes into the chambers and Otto's with her, and then he turns around to leave and she's like, "Father," and then one of the kids goes, "Aemond." It sounds like he says, "Aemond gave me that," or something like that, which it may or may not be that, but I just thought it was like a funny little connection. But also, the thing I really noticed, okay, they just changed the intro and they've added in the Hightower kids, Aegon, Helena, and Aemond, and they have their own little sigils, and Aemond's is the sapphire, which we all know that's very significant for him in the future, in the very near future. But what I found to be really interesting is, the Hightowers went through so much effort to like create all of this presentation for the coronation with Aegon in particular. They put him in Aegon the Conqueror's sword, his crown. They give him the dagger, the prophecy dagger, and they dress him all in black, and he's wearing his big Targaryen sigil, the stage, all of it. It's all so elaborate. And then his wife comes in. She's not wearing Targaryen black. She's not wearing Hightower green. She is wearing sapphire blue. Anyone else? Like,
okay. So I noticed the separateness from Aegon. She was standing by Aemond, kind of grabbed Aemond's arm when the dragon came, and it was scary or whatever. And Aemond was protective of her. That could just be brother-sister stuff, obviously. But there has been that running theme ever since. Young Aemond was like, if only Mother had engaged us, I would do our duty and make our bloodline stronger. And you're like, you might have a crush on your sister. So
the other thing he says in that moment is he says, that's your future queen. And this is when Rhaenyra is still heir. This is before the eyeball incident. This is before all of that. So Aemond has already been in the mind frame of Rhaenyra's not going to be queen. You're going to be king, and my sister is going to be your queen. Rhaenyra is not even part of the picture in his mind. And, Aemon's 10, 12 years old at that point in time. So I found it really interesting that he's already like referring to her as the queen and showing her like loyalty, respect, and like, treating her as such, treating her accordingly. So it is really interesting how he's on another level. Aemon's already thinking on another level from his childhood. And so I really think that, he's just
so serious, right? Like he's ready to go to war, like you said, at age 9. And that line really stood out to me and to everyone on our live stream too. We made a big deal out of it because it just shows you he's fully internalized, like you said, Alicent's mindset. And Minty, my fiance, was pointing out that like you can see there's more of an Alicent influence on Aemond. He is kind of a mama's boy. We see that several times, whereas Aemond is more caught up, Aegon rather, is more caught up in the rejection complex of his father and issues with Viserys. And Viserys doted on Aegon when he was first born because he was the son that he hadn't had, whereas by the time Aemond came along, it wasn't the same at all. So what do you think,
Yeah.
Casey?
No, I agree with all of that. Like, Aemond latched on to Alicent because also he didn't have a dragon, and she seemed to be the only one of their parents to even pay attention
Yeah.
to Jim Viserys's kids. And
That was like
then
the
she had to
best
pay like
mothering
extra
moment.
attention to him, who's like, "But you'll get a dragon. It'll be fine. Please quit trying to burn your eyebrows off." And like Aegon already has his own parental "I'm not good enough, woe is me" issues. And Helena's just kind of in her own world where she doesn't seem to even like interacting with her family, like when Alicent tries to like touch her when she's holding the millipede or
Mhm.
whatever it was. Like, Helena's fine without really her parents doing much with her. It's Aemond who seems to kind of fall in a place where like Alicent feels like she kind of knows what to do with him.
That's a great point, and that reminds me of what I was thinking about when I was looking at Daemon, where we saw that Rhaena and
Mm-hmm.
Baela, right? Rhaena felt neglected by Daemon, and it was easy to figure out, well, Baela rides a dragon. Daemon's not a natural parent, so Baela
Yeah.
having a dragon gives him a way to relate to the kid a little more. So it wasn't even that he was trying to show favoritism. He's just an awkward parent. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Alicent is trying to parent all three of them, but with Aegon, she's mostly frustrated, disappointed, and trying to apply discipline, but it doesn't really know how to do that. With
Mm-hmm.
Helena, like you said, it's awkward. She doesn't know how to relate to Helena. It's the whole prophecy thing. And, she obviously might be being presented as autistic or neurodivergent. And there's that whole aspect of it. But
Right.
with Aemond, yeah, it's like some good old fashioned mothering that she can latch onto. And it's probably the best parenting moment we see from Alicent with Aemond in that
Mm-hmm.
scene, right? So good points, Casey.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And the eyebrows thing, maybe we're just trying to go in a different direction from, blonde wigs and really dark, thick eyebrows like Danny had. We're just going to burn them off now.
There you go. No eyebrows is the new eyebrows.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. And Alicent, I feel like she kind of tries with Helena. Like even though she's sort of
Yeah.
sitting there like bored while Helena's talking about her bugs and that kind of thing. But we do see again in episode 9 when she goes to tell Helena about Viserys's death. And she kind of reaches out to touch Helena, and Helena like brushes her off. She's like, "Don't touch me," And I think
Mm-hmm.
there is something with the touch with Helena, like whereas maybe it brings in more of that energy or something like that, where she's just really like, she can really sense it when somebody touches her, or she gets some kind of vision or something like that.
Definitely.
Versus just potentially just being like a neurodivergent sort of reaction.
Yeah, I think that the sort of intersection between the idea of her being a prophet of some kind and being presented as neurodivergent is the sensitivity. She has sensitivity to things that other people do not perceive, whether that's stuff she might be hearing, seeing, dreaming, or just intuiting based on touch. But all of her prophetic insight seems to come based on what's happening around her. She said the thing about
Mm-hmm.
Aemond losing his eye when they were talking about that. At the funeral, we have the two sides forming up. So she's talking about the banners. The beast beneath the boards was all in the lead up to Aegon's coronation. And specifically, she brought it up the second time when Alicent came to say, Viserys is dead. Now, did you notice, either one of you, when they came and talked to Helena, Alicent spoke very gently, and Helena answered, "He's not here." And Otto
Mm-hmm.
spoke more harshly, and he was like, "Well, he's not in his chambers." And Helena just like looked down and clammed up.
Yeah.
Alicent gave Otto a look like, that's not how you talk to her. So we can see that Alicent
Yeah.
is protective of Helena and absolutely is trying to mother her and protect her or be there for her the best she can. She just
Right.
doesn't know how to relate to her, probably, right?
Yeah. I think she even calls her my dearest one or
Yeah,
something in that
right.
scene.
Yeah.
And so, I think she
I think
does
she
really
wants that
care about
relationship with her for sure.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing. Like I myself, I'll tell you guys, I have a daughter who is autistic, and she's very like, she doesn't like to be touched. She's very like sensory, she struggles with that. And So I can understand kind of that feeling where you want, you want to show them love, you want to hug them or show them affection, and they just push you away and they won't accept it, kind of thing. And that can be really hard as a mother. It can be really hard. So, Allison, she has her fair share of struggles. It doesn't like excuse a lot of the stuff, but also a lot of the stuff is kind of out of her control because these men, it's like Rainey's points out to her, why are you toiling for men all the time?
Mm-hmm.
For your husband, your brother, your son, or your father, what, your husband, your father, your son. And she does. She just, she could take control of the situation and really like hold it down. She could take the throne for herself if she wanted, but she doesn't. She's still letting the men kind of take the reins. So it's interesting. It's
So
interesting to
there's a
see how
question in the chat from a little bit ago. Why Helena doesn't like Aegon?
because he's her husband and he cheats on her and like drinks and like has bastards. I don't know.
Do you think it's really just that? Or do you think she kind of knows that, like, not just that he cheats on her, not that he just doesn't really like her, but do you think she knows more than maybe people give her credit for
Well,
about
yeah,
who he is, what exactly it is he gets up to, and what he's, capable of getting up to later on?
so can we talk about that line when Helena is like, she says something very insightful about, oh, I think it's our nature to always want what we can't have and try to take it, or something like that. That wasn't
Mhm.
prophecy. That was like some straight philosophy there. So she's
Yeah.
not just somebody that is only given to prophecy. Like, she has deep thoughts about things. And even though what she said about Aegon was a little bit awkward at the dinner table, it's still like that's
It was
real
so
talk
funny,
there,
though.
So
Yeah. Well, and Otto even, what I loved about that scene at the dinner table is she says, she pops off with it and somebody's I love whoever's giggling in the background. I'd love to know who that was. But right after that, it shows Otto and Otto's like, good. Like he's proud of her for calling Aegon out because that's what Aegon needs. He gets away with everything, but he gets away with murder. He gets away with acting foolish and, thinks there's zero accountability. And that's something that, Otto has consistently been on his case for, like, since he was young, because we saw that scene when Otto comes back at the funeral in Driftmark. He goes over there, he looks around, is anyone watching? And he kicks the shit out of him. So, like, he knows, like, if you're going to be the king someday, you can't act a fool all the time. Like, you have to, have a sense of decorum.
that scene
Yeah.
was so exquisitely well put together. Like the fact Otto's looking around and kicking him, and then the fact that Aegon is like, Aemond, like he thinks it's his younger brother. So already 9-year-old Aemond is like
Mhm.
mopping up after his drunken 14-year-old brother. It's like there was just so much that
He's
came
already the
across in that scene.
babysitter of the family.
Yeah.
Totally, exactly. That's it.
He is. I
Poor
love
kid.
Aemond. I have to be honest. Like, I know, especially after episode 10, I might get some flack for that. I'm Team Rogue, all right? I mean, I do love Team Black, but I am Team Rogue all the way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the main thing is just to root for good characters on the screen to make the story churn. And Aemond is definitely a great character, and there's a lot to like.
Yeah.
I love what they've done with the character. I mean, in most cases, I think they've done a great job at expanding on and fleshing out these characters, which were only skeletons in Fire and Blood. And I
Mhm.
love what they've done with Aemond, despite what Twitter thinks. Some of it, but whatever. We don't have to talk
Well,
about that.
that's what's it's really great about we've read Fire and Blood, and so looking at it in comparison, there's you can see how much it's written by the maesters, like how maesterly it's written. And so when we get to see, really more of the story, more fleshed out, more of the characters, especially Helena, they've really done so much more with her than they did in the book, and I love it. It's great. But we also see how much they vilify Rhaenyra and even like the Targaryens in general. They sort of
Mhm.
like, even though the book is written for their family, it's still sort of a vilification of a lot of them, or looking at them through a negative light. and especially in comparison to the high towers, which, you know, the maesters are so like in their pocket kind of thing. So you can kind of see where there's influence of the high towers in how Fire and Blood is written.
I definitely agree with that. I'm a big proponent of Old Town conspiracy, anti-dragon conspiracy, and all that stuff. I also think Martin is showing us what happens with history, which is that history remembers the big results. It doesn't remember if you dithered, if you had reluctance, if there was a debate. A lot of those things get washed away. They only remember that there was a coup. So in that council chamber, were Otto and Alicent on the same page with Kristen Cole and the Maester? Were they arguing who? It doesn't, who knows? The bottom line is they pulled a coup at the end of it. So when we talk about Alicent's agency with like the prophecy misunderstanding, it's like, I didn't take away any agency from her. She still pulled a coup, first of all. And second of all, it really did seem like she's kind of hearing what she wants to hear. Otto doesn't believe her, but is happy to run with the excuse. So, you know, I love how
anyone really
fell out.
believed her.
Go ahead. Sorry, Casey, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't think anyone really believed her.
No.
That Viserys honestly said, I want my son Aegon to be king. Like, no one in that room didn't side-eye her.
Well, they were all like, you know, they're already there. They had the plan. I loved Aegon's reaction to it because he was the only one that was real. He was like, are you kidding? Nobody's going to believe this. Are you freaking joking me?
No, he was just like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't.
He's like, he had 20 years to like be nice to me. And that's another thing too. Like, we kind of have to feel a little bit bad for Aegon because he doesn't, you know, he's struggling from like this lack of love or whatever, which is totally like, oh, poor little rich boy kind of thing. But you know, he does have kind of a like consistent lack of love. Like, his sister doesn't love him. When he asks his mom, do you love me? She's like, you're an imbecile. You know, he doesn't get any like sort of honest love in his life, which is a little bit sad. You know, it makes you wonder, like, could he be a different person if he had like somebody good on his side kind of thing. And I think in the books, doesn't he have like a bastard son or something that he becomes real close with?
A couple.
Yeah.
But don't you think they're intentionally contrasting Rhaenyra and Aegon? Because Rhaenyra, with the changes they made to her age and all, we met her at age 14, and she basically had a similar complex where she was being overlooked. She wasn't the choice for the heir. It was Daemon. She felt that rejection by her father. And the way that she dealt with that is to act like she didn't care. Oh, I'd rather just be on my dragon and blah, blah, blah. But we could see that she was hurt about it. And it meant a lot when her dad finally did put that on her. And she did eventually, over time, start to take on that responsibility, specifically like when she rejected Kristen and was like, no, I am the crown. This is my job. So Aegon, a similar thing. He kind of could be the heir, but isn't. So he's just sitting there feeling not really wanted. And that's all the scenes that we see with him is him expressing that rejection complex.
Yeah. And I don't think he got, I mean, obviously like Viserys was really ill for, you know, the better part of Aegon's life. So he probably didn't get, I mean, we've all talked about like Rhaenyra kind of having a lack of training in, you know, being heir or being, you know, a ruler. But the same with Aegon, like he didn't get that attention from Viserys either. So like Viserys, I mean, yeah, he had his health issues, but like that was one of his failings. Like he was too consumed by like his dreams and that kind of thing to pay enough attention to his kids to like, you know, prepare them for this potential situation that has arisen. So
yeah, I'm glad we all have animals sort of crawling all over us throughout the stream, and that's normal. I totally agree. Yeah, we've talked a lot about it on my channel. Viserys, likable character, but endlessly fails with his responsibilities. He does not train Rhaenyra very well, even after making her the heir. He creates most of the muddiness in this situation. Yeah, it goes on and on and on with him.
he is a kind, I love like seeing his kindness throughout the episodes, like with his little nods and like, complimenting Jace at the dinner after he makes the toast and that kind of thing. So his little like nods of kindness are, so appreciated, but he's also the king. So it only goes so far.
Hey, so Mrs. T in the chat was pointing out that Helena's comment about people, trying to take what they can't have comes right before Allison comes in to say, where's Aegon? We need to make him king and steal the throne. So I kind of obvious, but flew over my head. So thanks for pointing that out. That's a good. It's obviously part of the message there.
That's it. I mean, she's so she's so in tune with everything going on. She
really
knows
is
exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's what I like. It looks like she's not paying attention, but she totally is. She's very in tune with what's happening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't even have to listen to the people to know like what's happening. So she reads energy, and I think she has a lot of the foresight, a lot of vision.
Yeah, and I was just trying to say I relate to that. I have ADHD, and I'm very sensitive to all kinds of things. I have sensitive ears. I'm sensitive emotionally, and like I get that. I don't like to make too much eye contact with people. A lot of times it just feels too intense to me. So I just kind of look down and talk to people, or look away and talk to people. So I definitely relate. I think a lot of people relate to Helena, various parts of her experience. But yeah, it's part of a greater theme of handling the fire of the gods, whether it's the dragon power or the prophecy power. It's all the sword without a hilt that Martin talks about. Sorcery is a sword without a hilt. There's no safe way to grasp it, even though sometimes you do have to grasp it. And so we always see it play out that way. Viserys' prophecies and dreams, wreak havoc on him right down to his last moments. And with Helena, we see like no one really listens to her warnings yet. So no one's making any use of them. And she's definitely a sort of a tragic Cassandra figure at times. We'll have to see how the show uses it. I actually am really excited to see how they continue to use her prophecy. I think they're going to use it a lot.
I wonder if Allison, because, she said the beast beneath the boards thing, like very intensely to her. I wonder if Allison will make the connection there with.
She might. She might. Yeah. I was wondering that too. Because it's not that cryptic now that we've seen Melly's burst out of the floor. I agree with what you said that there could be another meeting, and I like the Jacaerys scorpion beneath the ship deck idea. That's actually makes more sense than blood and cheese almost to me. But certainly it was applying to Melly's directly. So
yeah, I think it could. I would like it if they used it for like multiple things, so we can. I mean, even things we're not expecting, and we can turn around and be like, oh, that was a beast beneath the boards, kind of thing. So it'll be an interesting one to play with as we go through. So
I did wonder if she was. I was
just
going to say, I did wonder if she was saying that in reference to Jacaerys and not Aegon, because Jacaerys had just finished talking and she sort of said it non-directionally. So it was a little ambiguous, but.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so having that connection with Jace, because I think that Helena, I mean, you've talked about it, you've made a video about it. Like Jace and Helena are very, interconnected. And if they would have just been married, probably all of this could have been avoided. So it's an interesting thought.
Martin loves to create those what if moments, and it's a nice job that the show picked up on that one little bit about Jace asking Helena to dance at the dinner and sort of spun it out into this proposal that Rhaenyra made, which kind of stands in for other proposals that characters made in the book timeline because the people's ages were different. But there were several chances where there were marriage proposals that could have been made, like Aegon and Rhaenyra specifically could have been wed to unite the claims, and that would have been the best answer probably in the book timeline. But they're so different in age in the show, it made less sense, I guess.
It's really fun, because we can start to see a lot of these connections and like missed opportunities when it's playing out on screen versus like reading it in the books. It's just like another way to sort of absorb the story and see a lot of these connections, like especially with the kids, intermarrying the kids in the way that they do and how they could be I mean, all children can be used. That's another like theme of this story. Like Rhaenyra has been used, Alicent was used as a child, you know, and now these kids could be used in order to like make things go a certain way, but they aren't really, you know. If they extended, like if they connected, you know, if they made Rhaena marry Aemond, or if they made Baela marry Aemond, or you know, just sort of switching if they had Helena marry Jace, like these things could have been rearranged and made to work.
We have
so
so
that
many kids. Like
exactly, and
they
they're
could
just
have married
marrying
some of
them
them,
like to
yes.
each other in their own family. It's like, no, guys, you can fix this, you know, and that's the power that like these parents hold because they make these arrangements. And so it's kind of like, again, you know, looking at Viserys and his failings, now that's trickling down to Alicent and Rhaenyra and their failings because they should have been taught better. So it's interesting.
Aaron and Casey, let me ask you this. I have a discussion topic that I wanted to bring and give to you guys. And you already cracked it open actually earlier when you were talking about Otto being like Daemon, Otto immediately ordering the execution of Rhaenyra and her children. And it kind of gets into this whole Maegor, Aenys, Jaehaerys, Aegon. How do you rule a medieval monarchy effectively? So if I could frame this question and then kick it to you guys, I'll do it like this. We all believe in democracy, or at least like open and fair elections, right? But given that we're talking about a medieval society, I've heard all of us talk about the responsibilities of the rulers. And Martin talks about it quite a bit. The name Game of Thrones refers to that line. The High Lords play the Game of Thrones. The common people suffer. We're supposed to understand that the duty of the High Lords, first and foremost, is stability, a peaceful realm. Don't start a war that kills thousands of people, right?
Makes sense.
So the question is, and this gets to Alicent. Alicent is really interesting in episode 9 because she is trying to split the difference. Okay. Otto is kind of going full Maegor and like rule by fear, power. You've got to stamp out the enemy when you have the chance, crush them utterly. Daemon is clearly on the same trip as far as how they think about it. And all the time that Alicent is worried about, oh, if Rhaenyra takes the throne, they'll execute my children. She's worried about that because there is a certain political incentive to do that. And people like Otto or Daemon will press that button if they can. Alicent is trying to say, well, no, we're going to seize power. We're going to do this coup, but we're going to do it my way. We're going to send Rhaenyra terms that she might actually be able to accept or negotiate with in good faith, and not just send assassins to kill her or declare her a traitor and lock her up and just go hard like that. What it comes down to is the people. What do the people think? And this gets back to the Rhaenys moment. Part of the reason why Rhaenys didn't Dracarys is because she didn't want to become Rhaenys the Kinslayer, Rhaenys the Cruel, and that might have made the whole situation worse. Whereas by showing restraint, she preserves the ability for Rhaenyra to negotiate, like you guys said. So I think it's really interesting to see Rhaenyra and Alicent versus Otto and Daemon and how they all approach this idea of wielding power. It's like you don't want to be as weak as Aenys, but if you go as hard as Maegor, you turn the people against you. So Jaehaerys and Aegon kind of did it right, or if you want to say Aegon and his sisters, because it was a team effort. So Viserys was kind of weak. He was kind of Aenys-like. Otto and Daemon are Maegor-like. So I guess I don't have a question, but Alicent and Rhaenys and Rhaenyra to me become the most interesting characters because they are trying to negotiate the middle ground of that. So what do you guys think about that dynamic? And like I said, Aaron, I know you love talking about Maegor and sort of doing what you have to secure the realm. Yeah. So
well, like with Maegor, he was in like a very tentative time, right? Because the Targaryens and their dragons were still pretty new. So like I feel like his actions really solidified them as rulers. Whereas if it was just left up to Aenys, it would have been too flip-floppy and probably like he just didn't have the strength to really like make sure that they held it down. But Yeah, I mean, it is a dangerous thing to have somebody constantly going as hard as Maegor was. And I think Maegor, you know, he knew about the prophecy. Um, and I think that explains a lot of his actions, like with marrying all the women and really trying to like have, create heirs. And he even he marries Alice Haraway in like a traditional Valyrian ceremony, like we saw with
Right.
Daemon and Rhaenyra. So I really think he was, very Daemon like in trying to like recreate the three heads of the dragon and to really like fulfill the prophecy. So it seems like, yeah, I mean, there, if they can prioritize the prophecy as the most important thing, then it doesn't really matter who rules. Like I think the most important thing is like preserving them and like preserving their longevity and preserving their house. But I don't
Right.
it's
So
it's a
that if I could interject real quick, that
yeah.
basically the prophecy just adds more stakes to the responsibility that any monarch has, right? Like any monarch is supposed to keep the realm stable, but it's just that much more important because the long night is coming and the Targaryens have to maintain that hold on the throne to be around with their dragons for when it comes. So it makes it that much more incumbent on the rulers to maintain power. So throw morality out the window. You can just talk about practicality. And like I said, Aenys was so weak that the kingdom was going to fall apart. And certainly House Targaryen was not going to maintain their hold on power. But Maegor went so far in the other direction that he turned everyone against him. And it took Jaehaerys to bind up those wounds to really solidify House Targaryen's hold on the throne. So it's a very interesting commentary that Martin is doing by giving us those four kings first. And then we get Viserys, who is mostly falling on the Aenys side of the scale, which makes Daemon's arguments like valid at times in his first season, even though Daemon is obviously goes too far at times. So I just love the complexity that's swirling about here. And I love how all the characters have these different perspectives on how to wield power. And specifically, I like the idea that Alicent and Otto have these different philosophies on the green side. And I really found that interesting how they're racing to get Aegon so they can control how the coup goes.
Well, it's like also, the perspectives of like men and women, and even like amongst the Targaryen household, um, like the women rulers are pretty well received is the thing. Like we hear that comment about Alysanne and how the realm has never been as great as, since Alysanne passed away. And we know Visenya was also, she ruled with an iron fist. And so I think she was really the ruler, whereas like if you kind of look at the Targaryen trinities, like the three heads of the dragon, I see like a king, a warrior, and a queen, right? And they have to work together in order to like be successful. And so we've seen that in other like trinities leading up to this, but Viserys kind of splits that apart. He doesn't value like the strength that the three of them together creates. You guys.
Exactly. He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. I'll kick it to Casey next since I'm hogging the mic here. Sorry, but yeah, you see Daemon Viserys doesn't trust Daemon and doesn't use Daemon as an ally, keeps him at arm's distance, and he's got a rift with Rhaenys dating back to the Great Council that he apparently didn't do the work to sort of sew up that relationship. Like, why didn't you make Rhaenys your hand? She would have been a great hand to the king. Things
Very
like
good
that.
point.
So, we saw it with Daemon, but yeah, Viserys is not using his two strongest dragon riders, and eventually Rhaenyra, you could put in that category too, but mostly it's Daemon. So then we see the same pattern repeated with Aegon, where will he rely on Aemond and use Aemond as a strong right arm, or will he be afraid of Aemond to keep him at a distance? That's something interesting to watch.
Definitely. It's a repeated pattern with them, with the Hightower kids. What do you think,
So
Casey?
ignoring most of our real world views on incest, I feel like the Targaryens really did make a mistake when they started trying to branch out to bring in other houses through marriage alliances, especially because that's when I feel like we see these rifts growing the most. With trying to get, like, Daemon's supposed to be in the Vale with his wife, and Viserys married his cousin who was half Targaryen from the Vale, so that's all right. But
Mhm.
then Rhaenys, she marries a Valyrian, and instead of trying to bring the Valyrians and Rhaenys closer, there's kind of left to go do their own thing.
Mhm.
And Jaehaerys and Alicent, they only let a couple of their kids marry each other, didn't they? Wasn't it only Viserys and Daemon's parents who were allowed to marry each other?
Um,
There may have been one other, but mostly, you're right. Yeah,
But
mostly
most of the other
Alicent.
kids were sent off to other houses, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's where those rifts started to really be emphasized,
mhm.
Well, it's a
is
great point
by
because
trying to create alliances with other houses, they've actually weakened their own.
right, and the reason why a lot of medieval monarchies practiced like cousin marriages and stuff is to keep the power and the wealth in their family, because when you marry outside the
Mm-hmm.
family, you are and so with the Targaryens having the dragon bond, it's just like a more magically personified version of that dynamic. So you're absolutely
Yeah.
right to point that out. And we see that this civil war came from the Targaryens marrying out their dragon riding gene to Hightower and Velaryon, and now we have
Mhm.
like 4 different factions basically that have dragons that all have to get along, or else there's a dragon war that's going to break out. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's it.
You gift your if you gift one of those other families with marriage and blood and children, then the potential for them to become a dragon riding family happens. And that happens with the Hightowers. Now they're dragon riders. Now they have 3 dragons, and it's now they're competition, and they're a completely other family from across the country, across the continent. They should not have dragons.
Doesn't
This
it
is
make you
not a good
guys
thing.
wonder like how often there might have been civil wars in Valyria? Like we don't really hear about it, but with so many friggin' dragon lords, like did they just periodically burn each other's cities, or was there some huge cultural taboo about it? I'd love to know.
See, I
Right.
actually I talk about that a lot in a couple videos ago. I think my oily black stone video.
Hmm.
Why are the oh no, in the incest video? It's like, why did the
Mm-hmm.
Valyrians, why were they doing that? Because they were all dragon riding families. So what was the point of, intermarrying within their own family if your next door neighbor is a highborn lord who also has dragons? Like, there is not a lot. I don't know if I actually buy into the Valyrians intermarrying like with themselves. I think that might just be like another version of a Maester conspiracy. Um because I think like the quote unquote Targaryen madness probably comes from inbreeding in their family.
Hmm.
And it's just something, we're not seeing it so much now in the older generations because they're still like pretty like
They're
fresh
less
and
inbred.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah, less inbred. But you go down the line, you get to Daenerys, or, well, not really Daenerys, but unless you
Aries,
call her
no,
Mad Queen.
Aries, and yeah, they're
Yeah,
3 generations inbred by that time. Yeah. Um,
exactly. And so I think that may have some effect on like the Targaryen madness, but I don't think, in old Valyria, if you have all these dragon riding families, it just doesn't really make a ton of sense to make them be marrying within their own family. I think there's probably more shared marriages than we're led to believe.
so my theory on this, and I was talking this out with Minty a few months ago, we sort of came to this, is that probably the dragon bond has something to do with family, not just dragon blood, but family lineages.
Mhm.
There's a big question about how the dragon bond was created. And I've seen some good theories about, it's got to start with a sacrifice of a human being. And somehow a
Mhm.
human spirit's got to be put into the dragon so that the dragon's children and the children of that human will then be like a kind of kin, and they'll have that connection. And so
Okay.
when we read that familial incest was practiced in Valeria, that to me is the only conceivable answer, because otherwise, why wouldn't they just marry other Valerians? They all look the same. They all can ride dragons. Well, it's to keep the family dragons in the family and to keep their link to the family dragons strong. And so it's a theory, but it makes a lot of sense with like the Targaryen dragons are their dragons that their family's bonded to. And so the dragon seeds, for example, that turn up and claim some of the wild dragons, they come from Aegon's bloodline. And so, yeah, that's my theory anyways.
I think that
That's
makes a lot of
interesting.
sense.
Instead of grandma's heirloom being a necklace, it's a dragon.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
and also there's kind of like these different breeds of dragons, which they sort of touch on in House of Dragons. But, you know, who knows how many other like varying breeds there were of dragons going back to Old Valyria. Who knows? So I think
Road crew dragon theory. Yeah, so it says Targaryen dragons were bred for war. Okay. But we also know the Valerians made cities and paved long, straight roads, miles and miles of very boring, straight roads. They made out of fused stone, which requires dragon fire and sorcery. So you try to picture Balerion the Black Dread working with a road crew. Okay, no, you would breed a docile dragon with very hot fire, but was very like could work safely around the road crew and just torch each little bit of pavement as it's laid out, or however it's done. So yeah, road crew dragons, war dragons, messenger dragons, long range travel dragons. Who knows? There's probably all kinds of stuff.
I love that. That's awesome. I love that. I think that the fused black stone personally is dragon afterbirth, but that has been cured like clay in a kiln. So that's my personal theory.
They did give the outer crust of that dragon egg sac, it looked like obsidian. They gave it that black, shiny, flaked look. So I did think that was cool. But yeah.
I think that's I personally think that's the source of the oily black stone. I think it's a bunch of old like dragon egg lump birth that's just become petrified.
There's a lot of it in Ashai. Ashai is the biggest city in the world, and it's all built out of oily black stone. So that's a lot of dragon afterbirth.
I mean, these dragons, you don't know, they could have been all over the place at some point. So I don't know. If we're not getting as crazy out there with theories as possible, then we're not doing it right.
Well, all of my theories are related to meteors. You know, it's the idea is there's a toxic Lovecraftian meteor. It landed in the Shadowlands, and all the land is poisoned out from the radius, kind of like color out of space. And that's why the peninsula is shadowed and the stone is oily black. So I think essentially it all comes from Ashai and was quarried and brought elsewhere. Possibly there could be another source of it in Sothorios, but I could see the ancient Ashai building Yin with stone they quarry from Ashai, possibly. But that's, you know, getting pretty far back there. You did mention the high towers. So, I mean, I do have a theory about the high towers. Do you know about that?
I'm not sure about like the actual high tower, the fused black stone there, or
yeah, well, it's fused black stone at Old Town. Although Maester Theron says it looks like the oily black stone, which makes it confusing, but it seems like it's fused stone. But yeah, no, that's my Great Empire of the Dawn theory. Have you ever heard about any of that stuff?
I think I watched it like a really long time ago, but I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, well, it just means that the very ancient high towers may have come from Ashai. They may have been escapees of that sort of disaster that happened over there, just like the Danes might be. And there's a few clues that the high towers might have looks that are passably Valyrian, one of which is the fact that old King Jaehaerys mistakes Alicent for his daughter.
Exactly.
So,
and that's what kind of like led me down the Sarah Targaryen road, because I'm like, I think the high towers might actually internally give themselves a lot of like dragon value. Like I think they believe that they come from, you know, a dragon source or their dragon people, a dragon culture as well. I do think that the base of the high tower, it being the fused black stone, I think you're right. I think that probably from Ashai, there were maybe some escaped dragons, Naga perhaps being one of them. And they came over, and there's some evidence of it, but this was like so long before like the first men that, it's hard to say. But if I like to like consider Naga being, kind of the queen dragon of Westeros, like she's like Tiamat of Westeros, right? And so
She is
like
definitely
her,
Tiamat, yeah, for sure.
yeah. So like her, like the oily black or the sea stone chair, and even perhaps the base of the high tower, could potentially be her own product, her own, afterbirth. And I really think there's something to that. I think Euron also is kind of aware of it as well. So I think we have kind of these Westerosi cultures like the Ironborn and the High Towers who kind of believe that they are also a dragon culture, stemming back to before, Valyria and all of that. Which,
and it's important to remember that the term first men is really just a label that the Andals applied to everyone who was in Westeros when they got there. So that was Lannisters and Starks and Ironborn, and the men of the Reach were all first men to them. They probably weren't all the same tribe or whatever. I mean, we don't know the ethnicity of the people going far that back, but like the migration into Westeros seemingly happened over centuries and millennia from Essos. So it would have been different groups coming from different parts of ancient Essos that made it into Westeros. So there probably would have been some variation. And we see there's different looks and color hair and stuff in the different parts of Westeros. So yeah, first men is like kind of propaganda. It's very much a blanket term. It's not like Valyrians or, Giscari. It's a descriptor.
Yeah, totally. And you can kind of start to see the differentiation, like when you look at those really ancient houses, like the High Towers, like the Ironborn, and like the Danes for sure. So it's a deeper
Yeah, some of them are
conversation than
worshiping
this.
Garth and,
Yeah,
different traditions. So
I love it. I love it. I'm glad we're going deep here, guys. This wasn't just a prediction stream.
well, there's a little
I
bit of
love
an
it.
elephant in the room, of course, which is that most people have watched this episode already. So it's hard to do predictions for it when it's leaked so broadly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these discussions we're having, this is why House of the Dragon is really working for me, is because it's hitting on so many of the main themes of A Song of Ice and Fire, such as how do you wield power, the idea that the dragons are, and all magic is really uncontrollable and dangerous at its fundamental core. I love how they're
Yeah.
doing all that.
I love it.
Yeah.
They're doing such a good job with this show. It's incredible. It's almost like, I mean, you can really tell that they've listened to us over the last, several years of the fans and how people really feel about it. And also we've all kind of grown. We've all grown up since, Game of Thrones started. We were many of us like creators and people in the fandom were, younger. Now we're what, 10, 15 years older, and we can see a lot more of the political like ramifications and kind of have a better grasp on it. And then of course, like the fun aspect of dragons being tossed in there. But they're doing an excellent job with House of the Dragon, like really making it tangible for us as watchers. Whereas like Game of Thrones was a new kind of concept for a lot of us. We had Lord of the Rings growing up, but and of course there's some Arthurian and that kind of thing, but Game of Thrones was like a whole new thing, and introduced a whole new way of thinking, and for a lot of people, to expose us to like the medieval lore, I guess you might say.
So, Aaron, you're a huge fan of the animated Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I take it?
You mean the old one from like the
Yeah, the old one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I have I got a 3-pack DVD thing from Costco a long time ago. It's like The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, and The Return of the King, all animated. Those are my
Yeah,
I tried.
it's magic. The Hobbit in particular, the music is just so good. But what I was going to say about the House of the Dragon is just to your point, you know, Ryan is first of all one of us. He's a big fan of the books. And I think I'm just George is getting this time what he thought he was getting with D&D, which is
Mhm.
people that are a fan of his books, that want to bring them to the TV screen and that want to continue to work with him to keep, you know, the different versions still true to the nature of the books. George comes from television. He understands shit's going to be different. He is not a purist or a perfectionist in any sense,
Mm.
but it's good. You can see the clear difference with, you know, Ryan working with George, sending his scripts to George, getting feedback from George, taking full advantage of that relationship, as
Mhm.
opposed to D&D, who after season 4 didn't even talk to George and just completely did their own thing. So
Yeah. You can see a lot. Yeah, you can definitely see where the disconnect happened, and it is fantastic to have. And also you can kind of consider like I wonder if there was a method to George's madness in writing Fire and Blood from like a maesterly perspective so that when the show happens, there's more room for flexibility and we aren't so like, well, in the books, this happened, but we can actually have fun with it and see where we can point out this is different, but there's a reason for it. The Maesters wrote this differently for this reason, which is
Aaron,
really,
these are
really fun.
hashtag facts that you speak.
Well, good. I don't know.
No,
I'm glad you guys know.
it's I know you it's not a fact, but I do think that's got to be the case. I mean, like I said, Martin spent over a decade writing scripts for TV episodes. So,
Mhm,
yeah, when he wrote Fire and Blood at a certain point, he had to be thinking this is going to be great for an adaptation because I'm leaving room for them to flesh all this out instead of giving them such a detailed script that if they deviate from, the fans want to crucify them. So,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really fun, and it's a great contrast. It's really filling in so many of the questions that were left, especially in those last few seasons of Thrones, where we're all like, what? But a lot of the stuff in House of the Dragon is really answering those questions, or where it deviated. So it's kind of cool. I love it. Well,
Yeah,
let's take a look at
and
the chat. I know we've got some new people in here. Valeris Valarion. What a great name. Peter. Okay, what do we got for questions? Let's see. What
just
happened
to
to
follow up
Araya?
while you look for questions, one of the things I was happiest about when I first saw the first episode was like, this just feels like Westeros. It feels more like George's world. So they can make whatever changes they want, but if they're done in the right spirit, it'll still feel like the world. And I think it's like that Rhaenys moment for me, that felt like something that would happen in A
Mm-hmm.
Song of Ice and Fire. A dragon getting free in the dragon pit during the coronation and wreaking havoc, like, and then somebody could do the obvious thing but doesn't, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's very A Song of Ice and Fire. So I thought
Yeah.
that was very true to nature.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. It's great. The coronation was a lot of fun. I really I love that that was something that was not in Fire and Blood. And so that's one of those things that we can look at it and be like, why wasn't that in Fire and Blood? Is it just they're doing it to be crazy and have fun on the show? Or is it because there was intention? The Maesters are writing about the king's coronation. They're not going to say, and in the middle of the coronation, the king's aunt exploded through the floor to, rush off and tell his competition what's actually going down.
Somebody wrote that theory on Twitter and I started like, oh, whatever, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's because it's written that Aegon flew Sunfire around the dragon pit after the coronation, but maybe that was
Mhm.
actually Melis, who also has pink wing membranes,
Yeah.
red with pink instead of gold with pink. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's how they covered up Melis bursting out of the dragon pit, is to say that, oh, it was actually Sunfire.
Interesting. I
It's
like that.
probably a stretch. It's probably just something the TV show changed. It seems that way, but it's still within the approximate, like, this could have been covered up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. All right. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Did not know my phone is
But
up
I'm
so
gonna have to
freaking
get
loud.
out of here real shortly. I've got some things that I have to get to today, and also need to rest my voice a little bit. So
No worries. No,
Fair
you know
enough.
what? And I'm so happy that you made it here and that you got to hang out with us. And also, yeah, this is, we came here with the intention of talking about the trailer, but honestly, there's just too much other stuff to talk about, really. And so many people have seen the sort of leaked episode, so it's kind of like we don't want to talk about it in too much detail, but also it's really hard to not talk about it.
it is,
So
yeah.
Even just from the trailer, though, I feel like if you've read the book, or even if you've heard, friends talking about the book, I feel like, I mean, in the trailer, we see Vagar, for example. If you've read the book, you know where Vagar is at this point in time, so you can kind of think of what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I feel like the trailer does look like it's going to follow the book pretty closely for this episode.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, and we all know what's going to happen, and I think it's a great way to end season 1 because it's really like that kickoff, So we do see like some craziness going down. We see Vagar, we see the storm, we see, Jace trying to fly, or I mean, excuse me, Luke trying to fly in the storm, and it just looks terrifying. It looks like
Oh,
where I live.
yeah, it does look terrifying for sure. And just to jump on the question you've got on the screen, Layla asks, have you discussed how Otto and Aegon might be at odds now that Aegon realizes he has complete power? And you could see that changeover. I meant to punctuate that earlier. Rhaenyra changes when she's made the heir, and you could see with Aegon hears the crowd, holds the sword up. It's like, oh, I'm king now, bitch. So it's like, yeah, are Otto and Alicent going to be able to maintain control over Aegon? That's definitely going to be a conflict of season 2.
What is it? Tyrion says, it's very hard to put a leash on a dog once you've put a crown on his head. And
Yeah, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And no one
I
puts a
think he's
leash
gonna
on
let all
men.
this get to his head.
So
And he
yeah,
loved that.
and with
He was
the White Cloaks will obey Aegon. Aegon's not a regent; he's the king. So it really is up to Aegon to assert his authority or not. Otto and Alicent will definitely give the Kingsguard orders, but if Aegon wants to, he can countermand them or supersede them. Absolutely.
It will be interesting to see like how Aegon sort of asserts his power on his grandfather because, when we saw like Joffrey and Tywin, like Tywin was clearly the boss, and Joffrey was just, he didn't have a problem kind of flexing on anyone else, but when it came to Tywin, Tywin sent him to bed and he listened. So like it'll be interesting to see if Aegon and Otto have a similar dynamic or if Aegon's just like, nope, I'm king now. I liked that attention I got. That was pretty awesome. And I'm tired of you kicking me. So,
Well, I mean, Aegon was fine to sort of hide behind Alicent there when the dragon showed up. So they're showing us that he's still on this cusp of like, I'm a man. Oh wait, mom, protect me. Like he's trying to get there, he's 21 or something. So yeah. It'll be interesting to watch that play out with Aegon and that dynamic with Otto and Alicent. It's going to be a big thing next year. And like I said, as Aegon tries to build his own political power, will he rely on Aemond? Or maybe will he start listening to his wife's dreams and prophecies? That could be a source of insight and power for him too, if he, thinks to listen to her. But we'll see.
And I'm wondering if that might happen anyways, because now that he's king, he's not going to be able to go out and run around and go to the fighting pits and, do a bunch of crazy nonsense like he's been up to. Now he might be stuck home more often, stuck with his queen. And, if there is something going on with Aemond and Helena, like how is that going to go? They don't like their brother. That's pretty clear. They think that he's not really fit to rule. Aemond, he will take, I think he wants it. I think he wants the crown. So it should be really interesting to see how it all plays out with Aegon and him stepping
There's
up.
a similarity between Aemond and Daemon, where like Daemon is constantly challenging Viserys and later Rhaenyra's authority, but when they really speak firmly, Daemon always obeys. And I feel
Mhm.
like Aemond is kind of going to be the same. Like, he definitely will freelance and do his own thing. But if Aegon wants to command him, that's something that Aemond will respect, because Aemond respects strength, just like Daemon does. So
Mhm.
Daemon respects Viserys when he stands up and acts like a king. You can see
True.
that. So,
Yeah.
anyways, well, thanks for having me on, ladies,
Yeah.
Casey and Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you for being here. It was really nice to have you on and a lot of fun. And you're welcome to come back anytime. I think we're Casey and I are going to stream again going forward from this too. So you're
Well,
welcome to
we're going
come
to
back
have a pretty
anytime.
long. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to hear when the end of your sentence is trailing on. I apologize if I'm jumping in too early.
Sorry.
I was just going to say we're going to have a pretty long break between this season and the next season, so definitely we'll have you on, and happy to come back on, and probably lots of collaborative live streams, I would guess, over the next year and a half to 2 years.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, cheers, ladies. Have a good stream. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks,
See ya.
David. Nice to see you. So let's see. Well, let's keep going on here. I think this will automatically do. So who else do we have? So Layla, I hope that we answered your question here. Who will the white cloaks look to? Yeah, I think they are gonna go. And well, we do have to question Sir Eric or Sir Eric
Yeah.
in his actions, or both of them, when we see how they acted in episode 9 with going to find Aegon, and Sir Eric is like, look at, the one brother is telling the other brother, like, okay, we're gonna go to this fighting pit where the king is known to hang out, and it's children, and they're like savagely fighting each other, sharpening their fingernails and their teeth, and they're clearly some of Aegon's bastards. And so it's like, Sir Eric is like, look, at this is the kind of man that you're trying to work so hard to put on the throne. And so when he decides to, what do they say, defect from the King's Guard and go and help Rhaenys and go
Mhm.
steal Viserys' crown, and to go take word to Rhaenyra. I mean, I think that was really beautiful. I loved the whole scene. It's super tragic between these two brothers, so it will be really interesting to watch it play out. But we do see in the trailer for the next episode that he does come and present the crown to Rhaenyra.
You have a
Oh,
sex
hey,
bot.
look it. We've got a spammer in the chat. It's legit. So do you have any thoughts on the twins, Sir Eric and Sir Eric?
I really like how they presented them, and I like how you can kind of already see even before we see Eric with an E in the trailer with Viserys's crown. We're assuming swearing toward Rhaenyra in the trailer.
Mhm.
I like how you can already kind of see that they're at odds, and it sounds like they've been at odds for a little while whenever they've discussed or whenever the family dynamics has come up.
Mhm.
Even though they haven't had to really discuss it much because it hasn't really been important until now, you can kind of just see that like they were never really on the same page with
Yeah.
what's going on in the Targaryen family between Rhaenyra and her children and Alicent and her children.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a saddening situation because these two men have dedicated their lives, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine how their mother, imagine having two of your sons in the
Oh,
King's Guard. You'd be so proud, and then, this division happens, and so it is a really interesting thing. I have a lot of respect for Sir Eric, even though he defects from, the King's Landing King's Guard. It takes a
mm-hmm.
lot of balls to do what he did. He's giving up,
Yeah.
he's forfeiting his life in that action. He's
Yeah.
forfeiting his position, his life. If he gets killed in the process, he knows, like, but he's still going out there and trying. And interestingly, I love how when he breaks Rhaenys out of the room, and they go through the passageways and they come out to that spot to like go out to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how Rhaenys is like, "Where are we?" And it's like So does everyone in the Red Keep know the secret passageways except for the Targaryens? Like, it's just funny to me that there's,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a few that aren't pretty common knowledge.
yeah, it's kind of funny. But yeah. So let's
Do you
see.
think
Well,
Aegon's children are actually from Aemond?
I do. I think that Jaehaerys and Jaehaera are. I think there's a chance that Maelor is not. I just made a video about this, but
I agree with that breakdown of which kid belongs to who.
I think there's a very specific reason behind it. And like we were just talking about with David, with the Aegon maybe staying home more often and having to, be around his wife more often. We've only seen the twins so far, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, and then Maelor is their younger brother. Okay, and so in the blood and cheese scene, it would really make a huge impact if you know if the older kids were Aemon's and Maelor was Aegon's. And if
Well,
you know kind of
especially where in the book before the blood and cheese thing happens, doesn't Daemon say to Rhaenyra, "An eye for an eye, a son for a son"?
Yep, he sure does. And so it's an interesting word choice because like what leads up to that is the death of Luke. So it's Rhaenyra's son is killed by Aemond, okay? But Daemon sends an eye for an eye and a son for a son. He's not going after Alicent's children. He's going
Right.
after Helena's children. And so if Helena's children are fathered by Aemond, Aemond is the person that killed Lucerys, then we have it's all kind of flowing an eye for an eye and a son for a son. He's talking to Aemond. He knows Jaehaerys and Jaehaera are his children. So it's really super sad actually. But I don't know if it will play out that way. We haven't seen Maelor, so it will be interesting. I don't know if he's alive yet or if he's been born yet, but that's kind of my
Right.
theory is that Maelor would be Aegon's children. So, yeah. And Maelor, he fits in that May, M-A-E, that's a George R. R. Martin copyright TM, I don't know, whatever you say. But the Mays, they're usually it's like the Latin mor, M-O-R or mort,
Oh,
where it just means death. So I think the
right.
Mays also that's like the George R. R. Martin version of mort. If that's interesting to anyone except for me. I'm a grammar nerd. So, all right.
Do you think
Oh,
Alicent is
here is
banging
a
Cole?
fantastic question, Valeris Valerian. Do we think that old crispy bacon is frying up his toes in the Alicent? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay.
Not the
Yes, I
toes.
do. The answer to this question is yes, I do. I think that they are.
You think
And
they're completely banging?
I think they have. I don't know if it's a consistent thing or if it's something that she just uses to her advantage. But I think that back in Driftmark when Viserys went to bed, Emma, I'm going to bed, Emma. And then they ask, Harold Westerling asks if he needs to stay and, keep an eye on the queen. And Viserys he looks at Alicent, he looks at Kristen, and he says, nope. And he goes to bed. And so I think that was the day that Kristen and Alicent started hooking up. I think it happened in Driftmark. A lot happened in Driftmark.
See, and I can see that happening, but the whole like adult bit where they've been adults and everything after Rhaenyra married Laenor and Alicent saved Kristen from himself. I've been kind of thinking that she's stringing him along with this like courtly love thing where maybe they aren't physically into it, but like they may as well be married with how dedicated they are to each other, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so I'm
I
not
think
real sure if I feel like they've been physically doing anything, but I feel like they're definitely more into each other than just about anything else.
they're definitely like having an
But
emotional
that line
affair.
and that look between them in episode 9 made me kind of rethink that.
Yeah, what does she say to him? For the love you bear me, do this or something or another. I don't know the exact line, but something to the effect of, I'm going to use your love for me against you. So please go do what I
Mhm.
ask you to do because you love
And I
me.
don't know that, like, Kristen and Allison are definitely not saints, but, oh man, train of thought. They're definitely not saints, but they were both so horrified about what Rhaenyra did to Kristen's honor, like he wasn't a part of it. They're both so horrified by what had happened that, whether it was the whole maidenhood thing, the Kristen's honor thing, the fact that she kind of in a roundabout way lied to Alicent about it, like whatever it was, they were both just so horrified by the whole situation
Hmm.
that I have it in my head that like, but then why would he start banging Alicent if he's just that traumatized by Rhaenyra to where he's even, cussing her out in front of the queen right after Viserys tells her, shut the hell up, quit
Hmm.
bashing my daughter and my grandkids. And then in the
That's a,
hallways of the Red Keep, in front of anyone who's walking around in the middle of the day, he calls her a C.
mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm confused by all of this.
Yes. That whole scene, yeah, I don't understand. They do. They both walk around just blatantly like talking about Rhaenyra where anyone could see it's or hear. And what they're saying is definitely treasonous talk. Yeah, Alicent's the queen, but Kristen's not, he's just a knight. And I think that, because Kristen has this secret, I think that Alicent and Kristen both have their secrets, right? And they confide in each other. That's pretty obvious because she knows Kristen's like deepest, darkest secret. But the other thing is that Kristen was like, he's admitted that he was kind of a ladies' man before he joined the Kingsguard, right? Or before he was taken in there. He was probably out banging lots of chicks down in the Stormlands. And so my thought is like, and then he just switches and then, oh, he hooks up with the princess. It's like he has his own clear lack of self control. And we see that on so many occasions with him. He is an uncontrolled force and he's just simmering right below the surface. He's coal. He's keeping things hot. He's keeping the simmer happening. And so yeah, I just think that they have Alicent and Kristen have so many secrets amongst each other that like they're clearly having an emotional affair, but also like
Mhm.
I feel like if this was in reality, if it was as a woman, if I had a male sworn protector that was also my close confidant that I told everything to, that I
Mhm.
was also like pretty good looking and was also like my husband's this old sack of bones, like probably they're banging, probably occasionally they bang, and I think they are also like best friends really. But
Right.
Alicent is still a woman, not to say women are bad, but we learned from Cersei the best weapon is the one between your legs. And I don't think Alicent is a fool to that fact in the slightest. Kristen has his own strengths. He's a man. He has physical
Mhm.
strength. He has physical prowess, and he's capable that way. And she can use that muscle to her advantage as her muscle. Whoops, with him
Right.
being her sworn protector. It's an
It would be
interesting
really hard
dynamic.
to at least not be heavily emotionally invested in each other.
Yeah, I think Alicent has to keep the. I think that's part of why she really like embraces this appearance of the mother. Okay?
Yeah.
Because she holds herself in this, we even see when they go get Aegon from the sept where he's sleeping, in the thing, there's these statues in the background of the seven, right? And the mother is back there and she's standing and it's just like the exact same pose that Alicent's always standing in. She's got her seven-pointed star. She's redecorated the whole castle with all of that, the Red Keep with all of that. And, it's part of the High Tower, Old Town conspiracy, I guess you might say, because they're all interconnected. The seven, the Faith of the Seven, the Maesters, and the High Towers, they are all together. So, yeah, I really think that Alicent uses that a lot, like
Yeah.
to her advantage. In her mind, she's representing the mother. That's the appearance, the vibe. That's what she wants to put out to people, is that she is the mother. And that is kind of like a very queenly like role to take on. It's not like out of, it's not unheard of, especially like in real world when you look at queens, they're definitely trying to maintain that sort of Mother Mary kind of vibe. And
Yeah, that's
so
kind of what I was thinking too. I
yeah.
think he just views her as too much of a Madonna to really want to actually sleep with her.
See, I think it's the other way around.
Mhm.
I think that when they go out to the brothel and he's like telling Aemond, he's like, well, all women are um made in the form of the mother and they should
Oh,
all be
yeah, yeah.
revered. Yeah. And so I think that's his self-righteousness right there, because he's like,
Mhm.
I bang the queen. I'm her sworn protector. This is the only woman that could make me betray my vows, and she's worth it because she is made in the light of the mother. And that's
Right.
how she upholds herself. Anyone less than that, anyone less. Rhaenyra, who's a princess, the rightful queen, these women at the brothel, et cetera, et cetera. No, he's he is above all of that because he is with the queen. So it's kind of it's a Lancelot, Guinevere bag of fuckery. um but yeah, there's definitely some big Lancelot Guinevere vibes going on. And I've talked about this all through season 1 that Kristen is definitely Sir Lancelot. That's totally like on so many occasions he's made that clear. This episode he did it again, and they're doing it in the form of like an Arthurian tale where maybe Arthur is an old man, okay? And this has been done in several stories, okay, where Arthur is an old man, Guinevere's a young queen, and Lancelot's a young knight, and they fall in love, right? And it's far more fitting for their age and that kind of thing, a far more fitting dynamic than her being married to an old man king. And sometimes in these stories, Arthur's like down. He's like, I get it. It's all good. I'm old. You're beautiful, young queen. You can hook up with your dude. But what's interesting in this story is kind of like a commentary on what would happen if Arthur died and Guinevere and Lancelot were left to take the throne or were left in charge and got to live that life that they wanted to live, so in their secret desires, right? So we can kind of see that playing out through Alicent and Kristen in the last episode. Tra la la.
Mhm.
That was my
Alright,
spiel.
let's see, there was a question in here somewhere. Um, oh, Valeris Valerian, do you think we'll see the wall or even beyond the wall in the show? I don't think we will see either in the show. I think we will see Winterfell, but
I
I
think
don't really think that we will see the wall or beyond the wall at all.
we will in the season finale.
Maybe at the very, very end.
Yeah, or the series finale, excuse me. Yeah.
Okay.
because I think I think there's a connection. I think there's a portal. That's all I'm saying.
um,
uh,
I didn't
so let's see. Oh, thank
see.
you, Valeris. I appreciate that. I have a weird point of view. I have a lot of weird ideas, but I do my best and I appreciate you guys.
Let's see. If
um,
Allison doesn't remarry, as is her duty, no, then that could also indicate she's tied to Cole.
that's
I mean,
a good
true.
point.
It could
You
be
know,
showing that she's tied to Kristen Cole, or, but also it could be her duty to remarry, but it's a little bit. I think it's also okay if she chooses to just remain a widow, where she not only has a son, but she has grandchildren. Like, I don't really think that she is seen as necessary to keep the line going, as like it's the pressure that Viserys had to remarry when Aemma died, because also he only had a daughter and he only had one child.
mhm.
Whereas at this point in the book, Alicent has 3 grandchildren, 2 of which are boys.
Yeah.
And in the show, we did see the twins, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, a boy and a girl. So I don't feel like Alicent is under as much pressure to remarry, especially because her children would not be in line to the throne. So like she would have no purpose in having more children unless it was to give another house more heirs.
Well, I think, we kind of saw this with Cersei in Game of Thrones, where Tywin, after Robert died, Cersei just wanted to be queen regent.
Mm-hmm.
Joffrey was young
Yeah.
enough, and she just wanted to do that. And then Tywin was like, you need to remarry. You could still technically Alicent could still make more children. She's not that old. And it was the same with Cersei. And Cersei was like, I don't want to have more kids. I don't want to have more children. I want to stay right here. But her father was telling her she had to move on. And so, that's kind of one of the things, like it was the men that were trying to push Cersei out and make her remarry. So, and because she's meddlesome, because she wanted to make moves and be the queen. So if Alicent is doing something similar, it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. Keep yourself out of sight, because otherwise you're gonna be on their mind, and they're gonna be like, we got to get rid of this woman. She's got to be married off to somebody else. We got to get her out of here and just let Aegon do his thing and not be influenced by his mother. And so that's actually something we might watch for, because Aegon is still, yeah, like we said before, he kind of hides behind his mom. So I think he might use Alicent sort of like as his shield a little bit, until he's more confident. And then just depending on like how meddlesome she is, the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for that is still there, that she could be married off to someone else.
Right.
I don't think it's going to happen in the story, because whatever, but it would be an interesting parallel to Cersei to be brought up, at least the conversation.
Right.
Especially because there's already some division between Alicent and Otto. And
Mm-hmm.
so if Otto finds that she's becoming too much of a handful to kind of deal with,
Right. I think
that might
that's what would get her married off more than, another house needing heirs, because she's not old. But for this point in time, she is older. She does have adult children, and childbirth does take a toll on your body, even if, medieval feudal society medicine didn't really understand to the extent to which having a baby affects your body. I
Mhm.
mean, the high there already was a high maternal mortality rate. So I don't know that anyone, I mean, unless you're a certain historical Baratheon, would really want to marry a woman who is older, just because there's a higher likelihood that she will die in childbirth, which
Mhm.
just kind of sucks for everyone all around, because you lose your wife, you potentially lose the baby. Team Black
Yeah, it's really
snake.
they do,
So yeah,
yeah,
anyway, if
that's
Alicent
another
isn't meddling, and if she And Otto, even if their methods are different, if they're working toward the same goal, I don't think he would marry her off, even though as her father, he could try to, and as the hand of the king, her son, he could even persuade her son to really push for her to remarry and basically get her out of his hair. But I don't think she's as meddlesome as Cersei. And Otto isn't as blatantly asshole to his daughter as Tywin was to Cersei, I don't think. He's almost there, but not quite as much.
Yeah,
Because
it's borderline.
it's borderline, but I think the difference is that Otto can just kind of very kindly suggest to Alicent that she do something like visit the king and wear your mother's dress. And she doesn't push back. She doesn't ask for clarification. She just does what she knows he means.
She's a people
Whereas
pleaser.
Cersei would be all sorts of up in arms and asking questions and just being a pain in the butt about it.
True. That's a good
I
point.
am Team Black.
I'm Team Rogue. I'm Team Black for the most part, but I honestly have a really soft spot for Aemond. I can't help it. So I think I'm Team Rogue because that's Daemon and Aemond, and they're just my two favorite characters. So I'm doing my own thing. I'm Rogue.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Whoops. I just clicked the wrong one. Sorry. Okay. Well, guys, why don't you go ahead and start dropping in your last questions and we'll start kind of wrapping it up. I know we've been going for a while here. And you guys are awesome. This chat is great. I'm so happy that you all came here and have brought
Yes,
your
thank you for
questions,
sticking
brought the
around for so
fire.
long.
What's that?
I was thanking everybody for sticking around for so long. I know we usually try to keep it about an hour, but we got into theory territory,
I
which was
know. It was too
fantastic fun, but we're at a little over 2 hours now.
Yeah, we've completely like detracted from what this was supposed to be about, but honestly, we're having a good time. And it's the end of the season, and
It's the end of
many
the
of you guys
season. The trailer
know
was a
and
bit obvious for book readers, and like people have been talking about all day in the chat, the episode has leaked. And
yeah.
so a lot of
So
people have seen it. I saw a couple comments. I only caught a couple comments, so correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but there were even some comments about specific things that are supposedly in the episode.
yeah.
So
I mean,
this was already
it's
going to be a rough one to get through, knowing that there are leaks out there. I've been trying to stay off Twitter because I know that is one place that you don't go if you don't want leaks.
yeah. I watched the leak. I watched it already, guys. I've been trying so hard to, bite my tongue about it, but I'm not going to tell you guys all the spoilers. So I hope I've done an effective job other than like some blood and cheese stuff. But that's not in episode 10. So that's just book spoilers. But
Okay,
yeah, it
Valerian has a question.
what do we got here,
What did you
Valaris?
think about what Viserys told Rhaenyra about the doom of Valyria? He said the doom was the dragons themselves.
That's a really good question.
I
I go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's see. Dragons are a power men should have never trifled with. In the first place, it's the same power that brought Valyria its doom. Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's a lot of thoughts with what caused the doom. Some people believe that it was like the blood mages sort of revolted against the dragon lords and they were able to like rear up the 14 flames and that kind of thing. Or that like the dragon lords were so offensive to the gods of old Valyria that they like, sent the 14 flames to like reduce them to ash. Um I think Viserys is muddled a lot in his like transgressions, okay? Because he tells Rhaenyra things like I think he's kind of muddled from the prophecy. And I think it's a thing of dreamers. And I also think he thinks he's a little more of a dreamer than he actually is. I mean, he's had a dream, but then he's sort of transmuted his whole life around it, you know? And so it's kind of like, I don't necessarily think like his words are always 100% true. And I think that that's a huge reason why Damon spends a lot of time studying, reading, searching for old information and resources.
Mhm.
I think that's part of Damon's mission, you know, is to learn more. The question is, does Damon know about Aegon's prophecy? Yes, he was hand to Viserys for a long time, but did Viserys tell him about the prophecy? We don't know that. He's not talked about it. He's not mentioned it. He's not it's and we haven't seen a lot of his, you know, time with Rhaenyra, just the two of them, so we don't know if that's something they've talked about amongst themselves,
Mhm.
or if it's just knowledge that Rhaenyra has that her father gave her. So that's, yeah, I think Viserys is like, some of his information is off, you know, because he sort of will frame things to kind of work for him.
Right.
He's not beyond that, which is not so good. What do
And
you
I kind of
think?
felt like, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Um, so I kind of feel like when Viserys said that, all I really thought about it at the time, and I kind of still have the thoughts in my head, is that Viserys seems to be kind of a bad Targaryen anyway. I did like how David Lightbringer brought up the Aenys
Mhm,
comparison because okay, so he was Balerion the Black Dread's rider. He was his last rider when Balerion was so old that he was barely strong enough to fly from Dragonstone to King's Landing. Like so then he never cared to even try to bond with another dragon again. Like him
mhm,
and Aemma both make the "you stink of dragon" remark to Rhaenyra in episode 1.
mhm,
And so I kind of thought that maybe he was just very much on the same opinion as most of Westeros in that dragons are dangerous, dragons are bad, sort of
mhm,
thinking. And that, you know, men shouldn't even be trying to tame things that they can't hope to control just because, I mean, just dragon size alone, it would be hard to control a dragon. It could be the most docile dragon in the world. And it can still, you know, knock you over when you take it out for a walk one day just because of how large it is.
mhm.
So I just kind of interpreted that as just his own general fear of dragons, which I guess you could interpret as fear of his family. Because Daemon was his heir for a long time, but as Daemon brought up, you know, he was always supposed to be in the Vale, the City Watch, the wherever. And I don't feel like he ever trusted Daemon enough, even being his heir, his supposed heir, to tell him about the prophecy. Because he never took Daemon seriously. He thought Daemon was just kind of a screw up that you send out when you need someone killed, or you have to give him a job or else he's going to get bored and get into mischief.
Mhm.
And when actually, from when we see Daemon studying, I mean, I'm not sure what he's studying for, where I don't think he knows about the prophecy, but he actually does care. And so I
That's
don't
what
think that
I
he knows. And I think that Viserys is afraid not just of dragons, but of the power and the weight that his own family has because currently he was in charge of having to manage it.
Mhm.
And I just don't think he was up for the task.
I think, you know, him not having a dragon for the better part of his life kind of created that disconnect for him, and then he glommed onto his ability as a dreamer versus the fact that he couldn't have a dragon at that point, you know. We've kind of learned over the last we've pretty much established that a dragon can have more than one rider, but a rider cannot
Mhm.
have more than one dragon. And so,
Right.
I think after Viserys lost Balerion, he put all of his energy into like his dreaming capabilities, or maybe even like came up with that. You know, he may have like uh psychosomatized that for himself, you know, where he's like, um where he's like, I'm a dreamer. Well, you know, we all have crazy dreams sometimes that seem really like, whoa, prophetic, you know, every human
Mhm.
does. But so it could be that he had this dream about his son wearing a crown, you know, and that he's like, I'm a dreamer, I'm a dragon dreamer, obviously, you know, and really like went with that. And that's where I think like a lot of his information is a little bit misinterpreted. Um, or like even by him, like I think he's kind of muddled in it, and I think he's kind of made some stuff up, and by not keeping his family close together, it's it's like created further divide with like sort of
Mhm.
that like what am I trying to say, like the strength of like actually being, you know, actually having these gifts. I think Damon
Right.
saw that too. I think he's like, I think he didn't believe that Viserys was, you know, he just didn't have the dragon in him the way that Damon does, and I think Damon, like, really recognized that, so he
Right.
thought less of his brother for that reason, even though his brother was king, but he's like, you know, to Damon, being a dragon means being a dragon, and there's no,
Right.
you know, two ways about it, and that's kinda like, you can't rule you can't rule the 7
Well,
kingdoms by just, like, being a tyrant on a dragon.
no, you can't, but also and like the comments have mentioned that, dragons are complex and it's not like, replacing a car or something, which is true. And, maybe he did try and the bond just never worked. But I mean, a part of being a Targaryen king historically, if I'm not mistaken, is they were dragon riders their whole lives.
Well,
I don't
Valerion
I can't
or
remember a king before Viserys where they weren't at least actively trying to be a dragon rider for their whole lives, and I don't remember many Targaryen kings who outlived their dragon before him. So
I
please,
don't
if anyone remembers one, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
'cause
it's just a
Valerion
dragon
was
rider and a Targaryen king go hand in hand. So him not being one sets him apart, and it sets
mhm,
him apart in a way that he's missing something crucial.
mhm. Exactly. And the Targaryens, you know, it's like the Dothraki, like a call who can't ride his horse isn't a call, you know. A dragon king who doesn't ride a dragon isn't a dragon king. And therefore now there's weakness in the realm and divide. So let's see. So Damon, yeah, Damon was researching a bunch of scrolls in Essos with Lena. I don't know if Lena was as interested, but I definitely think Damon was.
Mhm.
And here's my thoughts about Damon. I really think he's trying to recreate the three heads of the dragon. I think he's like trying to be Aegon the Conqueror. Like he's recreating that picture. Because my thought is, you know, Viserys knows about this prophecy that's handed down through their family. It's like secret knowledge. It's a game of telephone. Things get
Right.
muddled through the passing of messages and through generations and lifetimes and that kind of thing. But what doesn't get muddled is the fact that Aegon the Conqueror married his two sisters. They were dragon riders and they had their children and like perpetuated that line, and that was their goal. Okay. And
Mhm.
that's another way, like that message about the dagger we see in Game of Thrones, that message was lost to time. That was lost. The
Right.
dagger was lost. It went to someone else, who knows. But the image of Aegon and his sister wives has gone nowhere. That is what they are known for. That is, and
Mhm.
it's so solid in the imagery of the Targaryens that they made laws about it. They made the doctrine of exceptionalism about it. So I think that that's actually a more important aspect to their family and their longevity than like the dagger. You know, it's a knife. The knowledge is very important, but like that game of telephone can be lost over time. So I think that Daemon's doing, like, he's a man of action. He sees what Aegon's form of action was and he follows suit. So, and I think a lot of that stuff that he was learning in Essos is again about like the ancient dragon lords and their way of doing things, or perhaps like David was talking about how their families connected their line to the dragon lineage, or how they sort of unlocked that capability. Because I really think that's like so important to Daemon, and preserving that is so important to him. He knows how important he is. He knows that these are the last of his people. These are the last. Rhaenys, Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Viserys, you know, are essentially the last. And yeah, now they have offsprings and offshoots of that, but like that core group of people, you know, are very, very important. So yeah, it's really interesting. What he could possibly be trying to learn, maybe more of like what the Valyrian lords were doing, how they were doing dragon sacrifice, blood sacrifice. You know, we know Daemon he likes all that stuff. He's a ritualistic kind of man. You know, the wedding ceremony with Rhaenyra, that was a traditional Valyrian ceremony, and that's only done with very few of the Targaryens. Okay, that was like pretty sure Aegon and his sister wives. Maegor did it with one of his wives, and it was performed by Visenya, or officiated. And then Rhaenyra and Daemon. And then interestingly, one of Aegon the Fifth, Egg, you know, Duncan Egg, one of Egg's children, or two of Egg's children, they sneak off and secretly marry each other, and they have a traditional Valyrian ceremony. So and then of their line, of their children, come Aerys and Rhaella, come Daenerys. So I think that there's something also to that's again, you know, another Valyrian ritual. Doing that ritualistic marriage is a strong way of propagating their line. So yeah. Anyways, tra la la, a lot of spiel. So let's see. What other questions do we have going on here, guys? Valeris, we haven't seen a Night King in the
I'm trying to comb through the chat.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think we're gonna see the Night King origins at the end of House of the Dragon. That's all I'm saying. I absolutely think so. I think that's gonna be I think this is how it's all gonna tie together, because that's what it is. This is like, I feel like the actual first part of Game of Thrones. And then there's this long division in between, but yeah, the way that they're sort of like complementing each other with like the dagger and just like the prophecy and the long night and, you know, all of that. I think it's all, and there's tons of like imagery in the Godswood in the Red Keep. So like at the heart tree. So I really think that that's like another something for us to pay attention to. So, all right, let's see.
Daemon being the Night King.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
You don't like it? See,
Nope.
I do. I love it. I think I maybe you'll change your mind after episode 10.
Because Aaron and I do have differences where I have a very weird line where my tinfoil stops, and I don't think Aaron has a tinfoil boundary. So we'll be talking theories and everything, and I'll yep. What about this? What about this? No.
Casey she'll just kind of like,
when I first heard about Daemon becoming the Night King, that one hit me. It was just no.
I don't know. I like it. I really think it kind of works, especially like with his body not being found. I don't know. I think there's something there. I think there's something definitely there. But also if you consider
Well,
that being an option, like when he actually gets a dragon in Game of Thrones, when the Night King gets the dragon, it makes it like a lot more bittersweet, especially because the dragon is Viserion and Damon's son is Viserys, and when Viserys is like, "Oh, that's a name fit for a king," or whatever, it's just like, okay. So,
Night King origins involved a time shortly after the First Men, unless we get info about that time. But see, in the main series, we don't have a Night King that we've seen yet. We just hear talk about the White Walkers like they're a hive mind.
mhm.
And we have not even been introduced to the idea of like the queen bee of the hive yet. And so there might not be a Night King in the books the way that there is in the show. There was the
Yeah.
first there was the first White Walkers created by the Children of the Forest,
Yeah, and
but that
also,
doesn't mean that there's
Godwin,
a king.
there's also the Night's King versus the
Yes, the
Night
Night's
King.
King, the 13th Lord Commander of
Mhm.
the Night's Watch,
Yeah.
but that is also a legend like Bran the Builder and Land the Clever.
You know what
So
though?
it's
I saw so much imagery of that legend through Alicent and Viserys though,
really
with like the icy cold woman taking, after taking a seed and, tra la la. With the way Viserys like just started becoming this decrepit old corpse man. So I don't know. I found there to be some imagery there
and if
going
there is a
on.
Night King, he has existed for thousands of years. You're correct. However, there's no confirmation of a Night King. There's the Night's King,
Uh-huh.
but he is after. Does he? I'm not sure if he's before
The
or
Night King
after
is
the House of
the
the
third
Dragon.
he's the 13th Lord Commander, so he's definitely way before.
Right.
He's yeah,
But
thousands and
that's the
thousands of
Night's
years ago.
King, not the
Night's
Night
King,
King.
correct. The Night King,
There are two different characters in the show slash book series, and I
mhm.
think if there is a Night King in the book, that he is different from the Night's King.
And I love to play with the idea of it being John, because of the way the books are written, and there's Aegon or, young Griff or whatever. If he's Aegon the Sixth, then
Mhm.
John could, the show melded those characters together, but the book,
Right.
they're completely separate. So I like to think in the book that it could be John. That's the Night King, because we haven't actually met that character yet. So let's see.
Right. And
All right, is Nettles on the show? Good question, because we did see a girl in episode 9 that could potentially be Nettles.
I don't
Do
see the
you
show
guys
proceeding without Nettles. They have to have
with you,
Nettles.
she better be there. Like if
I don't know if
Nettles
that
isn't
girl
there.
was Nettles. I'm intrigued by the idea that that girl was Nettles, and we're just not going to really think much of her until later on.
Mhm. I
But
think it could work because she's working for Massaria, and
mhm,
Massaria is connected to Damon. And
yeah,
also there's, if Massaria is hearing about all of this stuff going on, the divide, the faction, all of that, what is a white worm to do but send some eyes over to Dragonstone and find out what's going on. And
mhm,
so I think it could be like a way for, if that girl is Nettles, for her to get over there. And then, well, anyways, yeah.
also, if we
There is
didn't
a
have Nettles,
shot.
it would be a loss of a great part of the story if we didn't have Nettles. If Nettles part of the story was just given off to someone else, because I'm assuming we're going to get the dragon seeds um, because Damon's been harboring dragon eggs and everything, like, we saw him, like, going through finding dragon eggs and everything. And so I would think that we would be getting dragon seeds, because even historically, like when in the first opening, you hear older Rhaenyra talking about the Great Council and how many dragons. There are 10 dragons, and other dragons have been hatching as other children have been born, so there's still riderless dragons floating around.
Mm-hmm. And we do see in the trailer that Daemon has that moment where he's singing to a dragon and like luring a dragon in. We don't know what dragon that is, but there are several dragons on Dragonstone. I personally like to think that it's Sheep Stealer because that's Nettle's dragon. So I think it would
Right.
be like a good compliment to this girl that was in episode 9 if that is Nettles, and then if that's the dragon that Daemon is luring out, which is different than how it goes in the book, because in the book it's actually Nettles that lures Sheep Stealer to her, that she gives
Right.
him sheep every day. So it could be a different dragon. I could be totally wrong, but I think it would be like a fun way for those two to go hand in hand.
Yeah. So do you think maybe that's a way that Daemon is kind of softening the dragons up to try and get them amenable to being around people so that they will accept a new writer? Because he can't have another dragon, especially where Caraxes is alive.
Correct. Yeah.
But
I
he
mean,
could be, kind of trying to soften him up.
it would be an interesting idea for, I can't really remember how it goes in the book, like how the idea of the dragon seeds sort of is brought up, because that's got to be something that's interesting. Like that's got to be something that's different. It's a new idea for these people, because you're just asking random people to come and try and claim a dragon. This is again the Targaryens kind of weakening themselves and offering strength to other people that could turn around and like bite them in the ass. It's kind of an interesting thought. Yeah, what an epic scene. I love that. I loved him singing to the dragon. I thought that was so cool. I'm really excited. I want to know like what the words are. So if we have a Valyrian translator in the house.
Right? If someone has learned Valyrian through Duolingo, let us know what the song is.
Here's a song. Yeah. That's how my daughter's learning to talk, is just through songs. She's a little Helena,
I love her though.
She is.
She's so fun.
So yeah, Daemon is the master of dragons. I agree. Daemon is a dragon. He's a dragon. Straight up. There's no two ways about it.
I think he has a weird understanding of the dragons and how they work.
It's like
because
how
even if you're a dragon rider and you're accustomed to being around dragons, I mean, you're
like
just going to walk into a dragon's lair that is not your dragon, singing, and sure, looks like he's treading pretty carefully and everything, but he doesn't look afraid of what he's doing. He still looks pretty confident in what he's doing.
It reminds me of like someone trying to get a wild horse, and they're like a horse whisperer, but he's just a dragon whisperer, which is like cool. So, yeah. All right, you guys. Well, I think it's about time to start wrapping it up. We've only been going for almost 3 hours here. If you have any pressing last-minute questions, definitely drop them in the chat. But otherwise, we'll kind of start wrapping it up. And, again, I've posted a couple videos this week. I posted one this morning, so definitely go check it out. It's about Helena and Aemond. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I actually had a lot of fun making it. And
I'll have to go watch it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Oh, well, definitely do. It's a good one. And then, of course, we've got, it's our last episode this week. So we're going to kind of be putting out I hope we can keep the energy going until next season. I'm really hoping we can really reclaim the Game of Thrones energy that we had going on at that time. And, people are really enthusiastic, and we can kind of keep the videos and the conversation going in the off season too. Which
Right.
I don't think it's going to be that hard for all of us to
No,
get.
I don't think it's going to be hard. It
Especially
wasn't even hard to get you back, and it wasn't even hard to get you back into Westeros, and you swore you were never coming back, and it was
You guys
like
have no idea
knocking over
how
a feather.
hard I swore off Westeros. I swore it off. And you can kind of see, like, in a couple of the earlier videos, I'm a little rusty on some of my stuff, okay? But I honestly, I had Kaci said it best for me once. She said, "You did a brain purge, and now you're just trying to like bring the memories back." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's true, because I did. I purged a lot of Westeros after season 8 of Game of Thrones. I was just like, it wasn't even necessarily the show; it was actually the fandom. I had a lot of. There was just so much drama in the fandom, so many people, and that's another thing. Like, now we've all kind of grown. We're a little more mature." But there was a lot of drama in the fandom, and I just kind of had to like step away and just be like, no, I'm going to study some other stuff, and really went down the Arthurian road for a while. And, it's nice to come back to this Westeros stuff, because there's, I've gained a lot of knowledge over the past few years. And so it's fun to like be able to dissect this now on a new level. But yeah, I love it. So, and I am thankful for all of you guys for coming to my chat, and all my new subscribers to the channel, people watching my videos. You guys are awesome. If you want to subscribe, or not, excuse me, join the channel as a member, I do have channel memberships for like $2 or $3 a month. You just click the join button below in the description thing there. I also have a Patreon if you want to go check that out and help support the channel. I would appreciate it as much as, any of you guys are able to enjoy my stuff. So it's been hard. YouTube's been kind of a pain lately. I know I'm not the only person that's experienced like pains with them lately, but it's been a bit of a struggle, but whatever. We're doing our thing.
You can get through it though.
We're trucking through, but thankfully Kaci's been my ear to listen to me just be like, what the heck? So yeah. And thank you. I really appreciate that a lot. Wicked Disperse. I really, really miss talking about Raised by Wolves. I loved talking about it. I loved it. I loved that show. I really loved the whole story. I loved the mythology within it. If you guys haven't watched Raised by Wolves, it's on HBO Max. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a sci-fi show. And so yeah, definitely check it out and watch my videos, because I have a lot of funky theories about it. It's similar to Thrones in the way you can get lost in it, in the deep mythology of it all. But a lot of it's actually real world mythology. Plus it's like sci-fi, which I'm not into sci-fi at all. But this show just wrapped me right up, because there's like a goddess figure, and there's a giant serpent, and so there's a lot of like that dragon energy too. So definitely, if you haven't watched it, watch it, check out my videos. And yeah.
So was Raised by Wolves officially canceled?
Yes, it is for now.
Okay.
They're still trying to get another network to pick it up, and it's directed by Ridley Scott, so it's not BS. Like so I think they're still really working, because they actually have like 5 seasons of the show already like mapped out, written, good to go. It was just HBO. HBO went through a huge transition. They got bought out by Discovery or something. They sold a huge portion of their stuff to Discovery, merged the companies. Discovery came in and cleaned house with a bunch of stuff. Personally, I think that a huge reason Raised by Wolves was canceled was actually because of House of the Dragon, because you can't have so many, female forward shows that are about gigantic serpentine figures. I mean, one's kind of enough. as much as I want them both. I mean, make the whole network about it. I'm fine with that. But but other people might not feel the same way. So I think that was kind of ultimately one of the huge reasons that it was canceled, because I think HBO wants to put their eggs in the George R. R. Martin basket. It's like Disney making, Star Wars sort of their thing, or Marvel or whatever. They're trying to make like a Martin universe, and that's HBO's thing. So I'm hoping that another network will pick up Raised by Wolves at some point. And there is like a petition. There's a huge like Save Raised by Wolves movement going on, like on Twitter and on Reddit and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely. Sorry, my child's trying to break in here. But yeah. Oh, okay. We have a guest star. He's coming in. So hopefully he has pants on.
It looks like we do have full clothes, Mom.
Yeah, it's about that time. We'll start wrapping it up, guys. But thank you so much for all of you guys for being here. And yeah, Wheel of Time, Valeris, is really great. What's some other shows? I don't know if you guys watched Rings of Power. I'm so on it. The end was great. The last two episodes really.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Rings of Power another go after House of the Dragon, just because I think my brain was trying to compare the two too much, and it just didn't work out. And Wheel of Time, season 1 was rough. I'm hoping they can smooth things out for upcoming seasons, because the book was great, but the show was a bit rough. It just didn't come across as well as I had been hoping, although visually it was great.
I haven't actually watched it, but I've heard a lot of people really like it. Sorry, he's on my microphone. Yeah. I've been watching, also if you guys have Stars, definitely check out The Serpent Queen. I plan to cover, I'm going to do like a season 1 breakdown on The Serpent Queen. Stars has like a lot of those queen shows on them, and they're great. And one show that I actually missed out on this past summer that just started was called Becoming Elizabeth, and it's on Stars, and I binged that show over like 2 or 3 days. I just devoured it. It was so good. So if you guys, I went to Stars for The Serpent Queen, but like I just like devoured Becoming Elizabeth. So if you guys are into like historical dramas and that kind of thing, it's about Elizabeth I. And I love that whole time period of like the Tudor queens and Mary Queen of Scots. And then The Serpent Queen actually takes place in that same time period because it's about Catherine de Medici, but Mary Queen of Scots is there along with her. So anyways, we're like totally off on a tangent here, but
totally off topic.
I am probably going to do a video like after House of Dragons ends, do like, here's some shows that you guys can watch while we're waiting for season 2 kind of thing. So hopefully you guys will be interested in seeing some of that.
And yes, the Sandman is very worth watching.
Sandman worth watching?
Very much so.
You liked that one a lot, right? Awesome. Well, let's see. Oh, yeah, Stars does. They kill it with the historical fiction shows. They're excellent over there. They have like the White Queen and like the Spanish Queen and all of those. I mean, they do an excellent job over there. So, all right, you guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up, and we will be back next weekend. Casey and I are going to do a post season 1 discussion, so we can discuss all the things that we can't discuss today, even though, let's be honest, we both watched the episode. So but we're trying to keep it pure for you guys. So I think we did an okay job. I hope but thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you guys if you stayed the whole time. You're awesome. And again, go check out my videos from this week and just my House of Dragon videos in general. Casey's got some excellent House of Dragon videos also. She had a couple of really great ones in the last couple of weeks. So definitely
take a
look at those. And are you going to be doing a season 1 wrap up or another? Should we expect another video from you? House Lorebridge?
Oh, I have some ideas, but I haven't decided. Lately, work has been insane and I've been exhausted, so I haven't been able to decide if I'm doing anything for the end of season 1, but I think in the break between season 1 and 2, I'm sure I will find something to play with.
I hope so, because I love your videos. So if
Thank
you guys
you.
haven't
Thank you.
subscribed to House Lorebridge channel, definitely go do that. I think I have you linked in the description. If not, I will do that. Otherwise, it's House Lorebridge, you know. So definitely check that out. Check out her videos. And again, I appreciate all of you guys for being here. And we will see you next week to discuss episode 10 and all of the heartache that we are inevitably going to feel. Okay. So prepare yourselves. I hope you guys are already like you have your alcoholic beverages or your, you know,
Your ice
words
cream,
of
whatever
honor
your
you
comfort
are.
food is.
Your greenery or whatever it is you need to get you through the emotional trauma that we're about to all go through tomorrow, because it's going to happen. So all right. Well, thank you. Hey, Moni, nice to see you. Thank you guys all for being here. And thank you to everyone in the chat, Peter, Moni, Valeris, Valarian. Thank you for being here. It was your first time being here, so it was very nice to have you. You had some awesome comments today in the chat. Sir Dreadhead, Lady Stoneheart. I know Mrs. Duncan the Tall. I don't know if she's here now, but she was earlier. Lizzie, Sade. So yeah, thank you guys all for being here, and to David Lightbringer for being here earlier too, because that was a lot of fun to have him on. So, all right, we will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'm sending you like love and hugs and, you know, motherly like support for tomorrow. All right, you guys, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, gotta push this again. Haha.